Chapter 1307. The power of the heavenly disaster was not that great. After all, many peak primordial chaos experts did not have a warning, let alone immortal realm experts. Although they felt the danger, it was not a fatal disaster. In fact, this was mainly because the immortal tribulation did not pose much of a threat to immortal realm experts. Furthermore, it was exclusive and only targeted at Yang Mei. As long as the others did not enter the range of the Thunder Tribulation, they would not be attacked. Although the power of the heavenly disaster was not great, it could not compare to treasures or mystic areas. After all, it was not something that ordinary people could do to turn waste into treasure and obtain treasures from a heavenly disaster. Not only did one need to be strong enough to completely destroy the heavenly disaster, one had to at least be able to advance and retreat freely in the heavenly disaster. Moreover, special secret techniques and spirit treasures were needed to collect and preserve the treasures extracted from the heavenly disaster. This greatly limited the possibility of people obtaining treasures. After all, the weakest heavenly disaster could make immortal realm experts suffer. To move freely in the heavenly disaster, one had to at least be at the mid-stage immortal realm. Among these people, except for a few, most of them were only at the primordial chaos realm. For a moment, everyone felt a little bored. If the heavenly disaster was not big, they would not panic. If there was no opportunity, they would lack motivation. As for Yang Mei's side, not to mention the fact that he didn't know that these people had been alerted and rushed towards him upon hearing the news, he didn't sense any unfamiliar aura either. Even if he knew and sensed it, he would not care. The only thing on his mind now was how to pass the Thunder Tribulation. After all, if he still had the time to think about other things during the Thunder Tribulation, he would really be courting death. Although there was no mental demon tribulation, it was like a fight between experts. Any slight carelessness that seemed to be overlooked could be the fuse that would lead to one's death. As for whether someone wanted to disrupt his Thunder Tribulation and perish together with him, he had just entered the boundless void, so there was no enemy who hated him to the core. Even if they did, they would not perish together with him unless they had no other choice, because there was no need. It was better to live a bad life than to die a good death. As long as they were not in a hopeless situation, they would not engage in a life and death struggle. Besides, weren't there Fong Qingshan and the others? Did he think they were just decorations? Furthermore, transcending tribulation, comprehending the Tao, and making a breakthrough were the most sacred times. Unless there was an irreconcilable enmity between them, they absolutely could not be interrupted. Otherwise, they would be punished by the entire world. Therefore, what Yang Mei needed to consider now was the period of weakness after transcending the tribulation. After all, according to their senses, the danger was getting closer and closer. Perhaps after he transcended the tribulation, those greedy monsters would catch up with him, but at that time, it would be a fierce battle. Then, Yang Mei revealed his true form, the chaotic spiritual root. Suddenly, a hollow willow tree stood under the Thunder Tribulation. 3,000 willow branches hung all around. Every willow branch was flickering with a boundless divine light, as if they contained a boundless space Tao. Just a casual wave of it caused the void to tremble violently. In a trance, there seemed to be a long river of space stretching out from the endless space-time. Each of these willow branches was like the most terrifying divine weapon. Although they couldn't compare to the main body, they had reached the level of medium grade 2. If they were to attack in an overwhelming manner, they would probably not be inferior to the attack of a level 3 supreme treasure. The most important thing was that although each willow branch was performing something related to space as it swayed, it also represented different magical powers in Tao. It could be performing space collapse, space slicing, space shifting, or space reversal. Especially after the space law heavenly pillar integrated into the hollow willow tree, it was as if the entire void had evolved into the source sea of the great path of space, and Yang Mei himself had become the great path of space. For a time, endless divine light bloomed. However, wisps of light diffused from his body, and the branches and leaves fluttered. In an instant, It was as if there were countless stars flashing with starlight, densely packed and beautiful. The power of lightning and the power of space wrestled with each other. If you destroy a little of me, I will erase a little of you. They have met their match, and the general has met his talent. The only problem was that the thunder tribulation was fighting alone, and it was weak. Although the tribulation clouds were still there, and the thunder tribulation was not over. However, there was still a buffer time between the first and second stages. This gave Yang Mei a chance to catch his breath. With Yang Mei behind him, the power of space was constantly providing him with power. All kinds of healing and recovery items were thrown into his mouth as if they were free. Although it was a reckless waste of natural resources and he felt a little heartache, he could not care so much anymore. Every time the power of space was weakened by the power of lightning, he would repair it a little and strengthen it a little. As this went on, Yang Mei gradually gained the upper hand. As he continued to fight against the power of lightning, he was damaged, repaired, damaged, and repaired. Yang Mei's essence, qi, spirit, laws, magical powers, and every other aspect became more and more solid. Although he had not completely passed this thunder tribulation, Yang Mei could already predict that the benefits he would gain from this wave of thunder tribulation would be greater than the Deva decay. His overall strength had more than doubled. Of course, if he wanted to gain benefits, he definitely had to pay and suffer. In the process of constantly fighting against the thunder tribulation, the pain was completely imaginable. Constantly tearing, constantly removing, and constantly repairing. Before it was repaired, it would continue to tear, remove, and repeat. Compared to the so-called death by 1,000 cuts, the so-called dismemberment, the so-called 10 great tortures, and the 18 levels of hell, it was definitely worse. This was also because of Yang Mei's determination. Otherwise, even if ordinary people knew such benefits, they would not be able to endure this pain. In the process of continuous repair, although Yang Mei kept taking all kinds of healing and recovery elixirs and treasures, the spiritual power and spirit in his body still began to slowly dry up, and he fell into a state of fatigue. Not only did these things take time to transform, but it also consumed a lot of energy and needed a buffer. Fortunately, the power of the heavens tribulation came quickly and left quickly. Otherwise, even if Yang Mei survived this wave, he would fall in the hands of the next wave. Phew! Yang Mei let out a long breath of turbid air and felt his entire body was hollowed out. But soon, he adjusted his mentality and made use of every minute and second to repair and rest. Now is not the time to relax. He continued to take the elixirs, and his cultivation technique did not stop for a moment. These were all instincts, but at this moment, his spirit fell into a dormant state, wanting to relieve and repair as soon as possible. This was also because this was Yang Mei. If it was someone else, even someone with a stronger foundation than him, perhaps it would not be so easy. After all, just like in a war, preparation was also very important during the Thunder Tribulation. Chapter 1308. Before the troops move, the rations move first. That was in ancient times. But in modern times, there was a saying that when a cannon is fired, gold is exchanged. Therefore, a war wasn't just a contest of weapons, equipment, soldiers, and other military-related things. It was also a contest of the nation's overall strength. Different paths lead to the same destination. The God's test was the same. It didn't just depend on one's foundation, how deep one's karma was, how powerful one's techniques were, and how powerful one's treasures were. At the same time, it also depended on the effects of the healing and recovery spirit pills, spirit fruits, and spirit items that you prepared, and whether they were enough. If it wasn't enough, even if one had a solid foundation, weak karma, powerful techniques, and powerful treasures, one could still die under the God's test. After all, one's injuries couldn't be healed, one's spiritual energy and primordial spirit couldn't be recovered. Under such circumstances, the result could be imagined. Even if one didn't die under the God's test, it was easy for something to happen after it. After all, if something unexpected happened and one's old strength was gone before new strength was born, wouldn't one be a fish on the chopping board waiting to be slaughtered? Why was it mentioned in so many records that when enemies seek revenge, they would choose the critical moment of their opponent's god's test? Wasn't that the reason? The moment of breakthrough was when they were at their weakest. Yang Mei was an old monster that had survived since the beginning of Pangu's chaotic world. Though the species back then weren't as abundant as the Desolation world, just like the beginning of the world, there were many good items. Though he had experienced the god's test, and many of them were used for healing, he still had plenty of good items. After all, some items weren't a one-time thing. Instead, they came back every few thousand years. Therefore, Yang Mei didn't lack spiritual fruits and spiritual herbs to heal and recover his spiritual energy. Plus, before his god's test, Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue gifted him many spiritual medicines and natural treasures. Therefore, he could use his body and Tao to defend against the god's test. It wasn't just because of the benefits, nor was it because he knew he could handle the god's test. It was also because he had so many healing and recovery spiritual medicines. Though it seemed like a waste, compared to the rewards, everything was worth it. After devouring these good things, as if they were free, Yang Mei's injuries and magic power were recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yang Mei completely withstood the first heavenly tribulation and was not injured at all. On the contrary, he had obtained great benefits. It was an increase in strength, as well as a tempering of one's state of mind. Again, the excited Yang Mei couldn't help but roar. Kaboom! As he wished, while Yang Mei was healing and recovering, the second wave of Thunder Tribulation was ready. The first wave of the second wave of Tao Tribulation directly smashed down on Yang Mei's head as if he had a lightning rod. Compared to the first Lightning Tribulation, the second Lightning Tribulation seemed smaller. First, there was movement. Previously, there was the roar of mountains and the roar of tsunamis, but now, there was only the crashing of waves. Then there was the speed. Previously, the purple lightning fire dragon was as fast as a clap of thunder, but now, it could be seen clearly with the naked eye. There was also the size. The first wave of Thunder Tribulation, the purple lightning fire dragon, was no smaller than Yang Mei's sky pillar of laws. Furthermore, the further it went, the bigger it became. At this moment, it seemed to be more than a size smaller. Even so, neither Yang Mei nor Fang Qingshan took it lightly. Because the movement was small, and because the power was more restrained, its power was more condensed, and its destructive power was naturally stronger. The speed wasn't slow, but rather it seemed slow but was actually fast. What the naked eye could see was just an afterimage in the void. It was just an illusion because the speed was too fast. As for the size and movement, it was exactly the same. The power of the Thunder Dragon was more condensed, so it naturally appeared smaller. It was like muscles and swelling. Moreover, compared to before, this Thunder Dragon was not only darker in color, but its appearance was also more realistic. Its scales shimmered, and its eyes were full of spirituality. Those who didn't know better would think that this was not a combination of thunder and lightning, but a real Thunder Dragon. Overall, the power of the second wave of Tao Tribulation was double that of the first wave. Moreover, this was only the first wave of Thunder Tribulation. One had to know that there were 9 waves of Thunder Tribulation in a Tao Tribulation. Every wave of Thunder Tribulation would be sharper than the previous one, and its power would increase by at least 3 levels. Just thinking about it made one shudder. Fortunately, after going through the baptism of the Heavenly Deterioration 5 and the first wave of Tao Tribulation, Yang Mei's strength had also changed dramatically. Otherwise, this wave of Thunder Tribulation would have been enough to seriously injure him. Even if he had healing and recovery medicines, he probably wouldn't have been able to endure it. However, the current situation only made him more cautious. Just as Yang Mei was preparing to deal with the second wave of Tao Tribulation, the people from the light chaotic world, the lifeless demon palace, and the angel battle team had already sensed it. Although they had already guessed that this shouldn't be the appearance of a treasure or a secret treasure, they couldn't help but feel a little disappointed when they saw it for themselves. However, at the same time, they felt lucky and regretful. Fortunately, this wasn't a natural disaster, but someone undergoing a tribulation. After all, natural disasters weren't stationary. They could move. If they accidentally encountered one, wouldn't they be in deep trouble? At the same time, they also understood why they felt a trace of tribulation chi. They thought it was a void natural disaster, but it turned out that someone was undergoing the immortal tribulation. As for the regretful ones, they were naturally the few who had reached the late stage of the immortal realm. Their cultivation was not bad, and they had some tricks up their sleeves. Previously, when they sensed that the power of tribulation here wasn't strong, they thought that even if it wasn't the appearance of a treasure or a secret place, they would still be able to benefit from the natural disaster. They didn't expect it to be someone else undergoing a tribulation. This time, they had really made a wasted trip. However, at the same time, they were curious. They were curious about who the person undergoing the immortal tribulation was. Why was he here? Normally, people would find a safe place to undergo a tribulation. It could be secluded, uninhabited, or it could be the base of a sect or a family, guarded by family or friends. After all, when one was comprehending the Tao, breaking through, or undergoing a tribulation, they couldn't be disturbed unless there was an irreconcilable grudge. Otherwise, they would be punished by the entire world. However, this was just a saying. Whether it was true or not had to be considered. Even if it was true, so what? If one's tribulation was disrupted while comprehending the Tao, even if others took revenge for him, would they really be able to make up for their losses? Of course, this was only for the people from the light, chaotic world. For the angel battle squad, they didn't have such thoughts. When they saw Yang Mei, they were happy at first, but then their hearts sank. They were happy because they had finally found Jiang Mingwei and the others. But they were sad because Yang Mei had already begun his tribulation. Once he succeeded, he would be in the immortal realm. Previously, the Taodai squad had suffered a great loss. Now, it would be even more troublesome. Chapter 1309. Oh no! The moment the people from the light, chaotic world approached, they were discovered by Jiang Mingwei. Part of Jiang Mingwei and the others' attention was on Yang Mei. They were concerned about his safety and observing how to deal with the thunder tribulation. However, the other part of their attention was focused on their surroundings. They all knew that they were still on the run. Who knew if those people who wanted to rob them would appear at this time? Even if those people with grudges did not appear, Yang Mei's tribulation transcendence would inevitably attract the attention of others and beasts. Sure enough, as they had expected, Fang Qingshan and the others soon discovered a group of people coming from the direction of the light, chaotic world. The reason Jiang Mingwei had been able to discover them first was thanks to the positioning pearl in her hand that could monitor a certain range. Previously, she had relied on this item to discover Fang Qingshan and the others, who had been enveloped by the bell of chaos. Upon seeing these people, Fang Qingshan and the others' hearts sank. The weakest among them was at the peak primordial chaos realm, and some were even at the immortal realm. After all, they had not known whether this was a natural disaster or an opportunity. If it was a natural disaster, they would not even be able to escape if their cultivation level was low. If it was an opportunity, they would be cannon fodder if their cultivation level was low. Therefore, those who had come to inquire about the news were at least at the peak primordial chaos realm. Greetings, Taoist! Seeing that the crowd was approaching, Jiang Mingwei immediately stepped forward and said loudly, afraid that they would affect Yang Mei's tribulation transcendence. I am Jiang Mingwei from the Tao, Will Sect's Jiang family. Greetings, Taoist! Jiang Mingwei knew that at this time, the only thing she could use was her background. Only the Tao Will Sect could deter these people. Jiang Mingwei even took out her Jiang family's symbol and the Tao Will Sect's token. She had not only taken out the Tao Will Sect's token, but also the Jiang family symbol. She was afraid that the Tao Will Sect's disciple token alone would not be able to deter them. However, things would be different with the Jiang family symbol. After all, the Jiang family was a big force in the Tao Will Sect. If something happened to an ordinary disciple, they might be able to get away with it. However, if something happened to a direct descendant of the Jiang clan or a disciple of the Tao Will Sect, they would investigate to the end. Sure enough, after hearing Jiang Mingyue's words, and seeing the two items she took out, everyone's footsteps stopped in unison. Primordial was like this, so was undying. After all, a person's name was like a tree's shadow. Compared to the Tao, sect, the largest force in the light chaotic world was only ranked 972 on the sovereign forces list, only slightly higher than the Shan chaotic world. They weren't rogue, cultivators, or fugitives. The more powerful a person was, the more they wouldn't dare to provoke them or offend them for no reason. So, it's a disciple of the Tao sect. I wonder what this is. Everyone looked at each other. An expert at the middle stage of a mortal realm, who was also an elder of the sacred light religion, the strongest force in the light chaotic world, asked. To let all the Taoists know, I have been traveling around the heavens with my senior and junior brothers. Today, when I came to your precious place, I suddenly had an epiphany and triggered the immortal tribulation. Please forgive me for disturbing you. Seeing that they were deterred, Jiang Mingwei was slightly relieved. She put away the disciple token and explained. I see. Everyone nodded. In that case, we won't bother you anymore. If you Taoists are free after the tribulation, please come to my sacred light religion and let me be your host. The elder of the sacred light religion sent out an invitation and then left. Jiang Mingwei certainly didn't want to say anything more to them now. After all, her junior brother was undergoing the tribulation, and it wasn't good for so many of them to gather here. Okay, in this regard, Jiang Mingwen naturally agreed. In this way, the elder of the sacred light religion naturally left with satisfaction. Not only him, but the other immortal realm experts also chatted for a while and then left. Firstly, although Jiang Mingyue was from the Jiang family in the Tao sect, she was only at the primordial chaos realm, and she was only at the middle stage primordial chaos realm. Dragons don't live with snakes, and immortals don't gather with humans. Although one's background needed to be considered, cultivation was more important. Although Jiang Mingwei had an extraordinary background, as immortal realm experts, they couldn't be too excessive. After all, they also wanted to save face. And even if they wanted to build a good relationship, now was not the time. She was not in the mood to talk to them. As for observing the immortal tribulation, that was completely unnecessary for them. After all, they had already passed the tribulation. However, although the immortal realm experts left, except for a small number of primordial chaos realm experts who were below the immortal realm, they didn't move. Firstly, they also wanted to observe. This kind of good thing didn't happen all the time. Secondly, there was the group of people from the lifeless demon palace who wanted to fish in troubled waters. However, at this moment, they didn't dare to act rashly. After all, Jiang Mingwei and the others weren't weak. Moreover, Yang Mei was about to break through to the immortal realm. They didn't have the confidence to eat them in one bite. Most importantly, there were too many people around. Once they moved, they would be exposed immediately. Not to mention whether they could take down Jiang Mingwei and the others. Once they were exposed in front of everyone, the Tao sect would not let them off just to protect their own sect, let alone anything else. It was important to know that they had sent a divine emperor when someone else had asked them to take action. If something happened to a disciple of the Tao sect, especially a disciple of the Jiang family, it would be like poking a hornet's nest. Therefore, it didn't move. Instead, they lay dormant and waited for an opportunity. This was because they knew that a group of like-minded Taoist experts would be coming soon. When that time came, they would not only be more confident, but also safer to fish in troubled waters. Seeing that the immortal realm experts had left one by one, Jiang Mingyue and Fang Qingshan couldn't help but heave a sigh of relief. After all, their cultivation was only at the primordial chaos realm. One could imagine how much pressure they were under when facing a group of immortal realm experts. After all, the two of them weren't on the same level. Although they had their own methods, they wouldn't be completely defenseless against an immortal realm expert. They might even be able to injure an immortal realm expert if they were caught off guard. However, those were just trump cards. They might be able to deal with one or two immortal realm experts, but they would be completely useless against a few or even a dozen of them. Saying 1,000, saying 10,000. One's own strength was still the foundation. Other things, be it divine abilities, spirit treasures, trump cards, or secret techniques, were all insignificant. As for the other primordial chaos realm experts, Feng Qingshan and the others didn't care. After all, this wasn't their territory, so they couldn't bully others and clear the place. They could watch as long as they didn't cause trouble. Moreover, even if they wanted to clear the place, they had to see if the other party was willing. On the contrary, it wouldn't be good if they provoked the crowd. Of course, the most important thing was that they were conceited. If there weren't any Immortal Realm experts, they could still deal with them if they used their trump cards. Chapter 13:10. The Immortal Realm experts came and went, and many mixed origin experts gathered around. Most of them had no ill intentions and only wanted to observe to increase their chances of success in overcoming the tribulation in the future. However, there was no lack of people with ill intentions. Yang Mei did not mind at all. Firstly, he trusted Feng Qingshan and the others and knew that they would take care of these matters. Secondly, he could not afford to be distracted at all. When experts fought, victory or defeat was decided in an instant. Tribulation transcendence was even more so. It was something that he did not have 100% confidence in, so he could not afford to be careless. At the moment, he was completely focused on overcoming the tribulation. After all, his combat power had undergone a drastic change due to the David Decay and the first tribulation lightning. However, as he grew, the tribulation lightning also changed. The power of the second tribulation lightning was incomparable to the first. This time, Yang Mei still did not use his numinous treasure or divine power. Instead, he continued to use his body and nomological laws to resist it. Although the tribulation lightning had not completely landed on him, Yang Mei had already been alerted by sudden inspiration of the power and difficulty of the tribulation lightning. This was no small matter. He had to be careful. However, he had tasted the sweetness of the first tribulation lightning. Although he was vigilant, he could not help but relax. After all, the feeling of his strength undergoing earth-shattering changes at every moment was simply too intoxicating. Furthermore, this was only the first tribulation lightning of the second tribulation lightning. He was confident that even if it was more powerful than the first tribulation lightning, his combat power had also doubled. As long as he was careful, there should not be any problems. Unfortunately, he had been too careless this time. How could one not wet their shoes if they often walked by the river? He had almost failed miserably. Sure enough, when the tribulation lightning really fell on his body, in an instant, his intestines turned green with regret. That feeling was just too unbearable. It was not that it was too painful, but it was so painful that he had become numb. It was as if he had completely lost consciousness. Although his body had been torn apart by the tribulation lightning before, it was more thorough this time. His entire body seemed to have turned into the most basic molecules and atoms. Although he had already cultivated to the stage of rebirth from a single drop of blood. However, at this moment, he was numb from the pain. The lightning tribulation was not only destroying his body, but it was also seeping into every part of his body, erasing every atom of his memory. This feeling was somewhat similar to the previous David Decay. Essence, chi, soul, laws, and true spirit were all bombarded at the same time. The destructive power of the lightning tribulation was not only constantly destroying Yang Mei's body, but it was also constantly preventing Yang Mei from repairing himself. His injuries were getting more and more serious, but his recovery was like trying to quench his thirst with poison. Just like that, Yang Mei instantly fell into the edge of hell. If it wasn't for the fact that the tribulation lightning didn't fall one after another like the first tribulation lightning, Yang Mei would have died a long time ago. He's too careless. Seeing this, Feng Qingshan and Jiang Mingwei immediately frowned. His heart was in his throat. However, they also understood Yang Mei. After all, if they were in his shoes, they would probably make the same choice as Yang Mei. The only unexpected thing was that although Yang Mei was also growing, the speed of the lightning tribulation's growth was faster than Yang Mei's growth. Fortunately, raising eyebrows was still raising eyebrows. He was one of the most powerful fiend gods born in a primal chaos world. He was not easy to deal with. Phoenix's nirvana, rebirth from the ashes. Seeing that he was about to sink into oblivion, Yang Mei made a prompt decision to use a secret technique. At a certain moment, a cluster of flames suddenly appeared on Yang Mei's body. The fire was not big, nor was it explosive. On the contrary, it seemed a little gentle, full of endless vitality. Those who didn't know would think that it was the wood attribute. In an instant, it was as if he had swallowed all the lightning with a roll of his tongue. Then, a series of clanging phoenix cries could be heard, and a 9-colored phoenix could be seen dancing. The 9-colored phoenix had the same effect as the true dragon's 9 claws. 5-colored phoenixes were equivalent to quasi-saints. 7-colored phoenixes were equivalent to primordial immortals, and 9-colored phoenixes had the potential to reach the immortal stage. Of course, the 9-colored phoenix was not at the immortal stage, but a phenomenon condensed by Yang Mei's secret technique that borrowed the immortal phoenix's power. Not long after, Yang Mei recovered to his original state. This technique was the Phoenix Clan's rebirth from the ashes, a secret technique that Yang Mei had obtained from communicating with the primal phoenix. At the same time, he had survived the great tribulation of creation and comprehended it in nirvana. Seeing this scene, Jiang Mingyue, Fang Qingshan, and the others could not help but let out a long sigh. It wasn't just them, even the people around them who had their own thoughts were the same. They were not worried for Yang Mei, but they were deeply moved. Too strong. Not only the thunder tribulation, but also Yang Mei. As for the immortal tribulation, it was not the first time they had seen it. Although they did not see it with their own eyes, they had heard about it from the books. Although Yang Mei's immortal tribulation was not heaven-defying, it was still a top-grade thunder tribulation. Just like spirit treasures and spiritual items, the thunder tribulation could be divided into low-grade, mid-grade, high-grade, and top-grade. It was just like primordial immortals also had titles like ordinary primordial immortals. For example, the current immortal tribulation was also a tribulation of 3-9 paths, so it naturally had different grades. Those who were going through low-grade thunder tribulations had almost exhausted their potential. Such people, even if they broke through to the immortal stage, would not be able to do anything without a great opportunity. Their fighting capacity could not even be compared to powerful primordial immortals at the same level. If Uncle Wong was going through the thunder tribulation, it would be like this. Those who were going through mid-grade thunder tribulation had better potential than those who were going through low-grade thunder tribulation. They could still break through, but they could only reach the peak of the immortal stage at most. This kind of person could be considered the general public, which was the most common state. After all, in the infinite void, those below the primordial immortal realm were like dogs. Primordial immortals could be found everywhere, but the immortal realm was still the mainstay. As for divine emperors, they were the overlords of a region. As for those who were going through high-level thunder tribulations or high-grade thunder tribulations, they had a great chance to break through to the divine emperor realm. Such people, after breaking through, even if they could not become immortal realm experts, their fighting capacity would still be very strong. Nowadays, in the infinite void, 98% of the experts who broke through to the divine emperor realm had gone through high-level thunder tribulations. As for the other 2%, one of them was a better thunder tribulation. Although the other 2% were mid-grade or low-grade thunder tribulations, they had good opportunities. As for those who were going through top-grade thunder tribulations, they were naturally better than those who were going through high-level thunder tribulations. Once they passed the thunder tribulation, it would not be as simple as breaking through to the immortal stage. They might even break through 3 levels and reach the late stage of the immortal stage, or even the peak. To them, breaking through to the divine emperor realm was just a matter of time. They might even break through to the god emperor realm. Chapter 13:11. Of course, there was another type of existence above the low, medium, high, and top-notch ones. They were born divine beings who gathered the luck of an era. Their lightning tribulations weren't just 3 lightning tribulations, but 4 lightning tribulations, or even 5 lightning tribulations. However, there might not even be one in an era who was born with the luck of heaven and earth. To them, the heavens and the earth were truly on their side. Everything they did was smooth sailing, turning misfortunes into blessings, and turning misfortune into fortune. Treasures fell from the heavens as they sat at home. Breaking through to the God-Emperor realm wasn't much more difficult than drinking water. There was also a 20% chance of breaking through to the God-Emperor realm. Without comparison, there would be no harm. Even though it was only 20%, it was already a very high probability. In the entire boundless void, there were at least hundreds of thousands of peak God-Emperor realm cultivators. However, very few people heard about lightning tribulations. It wasn't because the God-Emperor tribulation had caused a huge commotion. It wasn't that easy to block the news. Almost no one was undergoing lightning tribulations. It wasn't that they didn't want to, but that they couldn't. That was because more than 80% of them didn't even have half a chance. The other 15% didn't even have half a chance of breaking through to the God-Emperor realm. Therefore, one could imagine how high the 20% chance was. Putting all this aside, Yang Mei's lightning tribulations were obviously of high quality. Everyone was naturally shocked by this, but they felt that it was only natural. After all, Yang Mei was a disciple of the Daoist sect. It was natural for him to have such talent and foundation. Senior brother Jiang, what should we do now? Fang Qingshan and the rest heaved a sigh of relief when they saw that Yang Mei had safely passed the lightning tribulations. Next, Yang Mei would definitely be cautious after suffering a loss, so they didn't have to worry too much. But at the same time, they had to consider what would happen after Yang Mei's lightning tribulations. Although Jiang Mingyue's display of the Dao Will Sect's token had deterred the experts of the light chaotic world, the people who had chased them wouldn't care about this. Otherwise, they wouldn't have chased them all the way from the merchant chaotic world. These people were desperados who valued money more than their lives. Do you have any good ideas? Jiang Mingyue thought about it, but she couldn't think of a way out. She secretly estimated that Jiang, Overlord, or the elders of the Dao Will Sect would still need some time to get here. During this time, they needed to hold on. Originally, she planned to keep running, but because of Yang Mei's tribulation, it was obvious that her plan was ruined. Of course, Jiang Mingyue also understood that even without Yang Mei's heavenly tribulation, they would not be able to escape. On the contrary, if Yang Mei could break through to the immortal realm, it would increase their power greatly, which would make it easier for them to deal with any unexpected incidents. In addition, what made Jiang Mingyue hesitate was that she couldn't guess the level of the people who were chasing after them. If they were all primordial chaos experts, even if they were all peak primordial chaos experts, she would not take them seriously. What he was afraid of was that there might be undying experts among them. Just like what was said before, 1 or 2 undying experts with their trump cards, they could still sit back and relax. But what if there were too many? What if these immortal experts weren't ordinary immortal experts? What if they weren't low-level immortal experts, but middle or high-level immortal experts? Moreover, she had a trump card, but did that mean the others didn't? As for God-Emperor experts, Jiang Mingyue did not even think about it. If there were such experts, they would not be able to escape before the experts of the Dao Will Sect arrived. There was no room for resistance at all. Even if they had a trump card, they had to be given a chance to use it. For a moment, Jiang Mingyue could not help but feel confused. Although she was born in a large sect or clan, although she had a body that could sense danger and seek fortune and avoid calamity, she was still too young and had too little experience. Normally, she had the protection of her sect and her teachers. Right now, although she was not panicking, she was still a mess. There's no good way. We can only deal with it when it comes. Fang Qingshan, on the other hand, had experienced many worlds, gone through all kinds of tribulations, met many experts, and walked step by step to where he was today. His mind was much stronger than Jiang Mingyue's, so he did not panic. If it's just a primordial chaos expert below the immortal realm, you don't need to use your trump card. I will devour him for you. If it's an immortal realm expert, or even a God Emperor expert, I can buy some time for us. If it still doesn't work, then Fong Qingshan did not finish his sentence, but the meaning in his words was self-evident. If Jiang, Overlord, or the Tao Will Sex elders had not arrived by then, he would be helpless, and they could only wait for death. In the end, although they had great potential and many trump cards, they still had not grown up. There was a limit to what they could do. However, Jiang Mingwei and Uncle Wang were already very happy about this. Although she could deal with those below the primordial chaos level, she would still need to use her trump card because of the number of people. As for the immortal realm expert, even if she used her trump card, it would be useless. The two of them were happy that Fong Qingshan could actually devour and delay, but they were also very curious. Junior brother, how will you devour and delay? I have a formation called the Zhoutian Star Formation. As long as there are no immortal realm experts, I can even devour hundreds or thousands of primordial chaos experts. Fong Qingshan did not avoid the topic and said confidently and straightforwardly. During the desolation, the power of the Zhoutian Star Formation seemed to be only SOSO, comparable to that of the primordial chaos. In fact, it was broken over and over again. However, the truth was that this was not the limit of the Zhoutian Star Formation. This was because the Zhoutian Star Formation, set up by the Demon Clan, used Dijun's book of the Luo River Diagram Formation as the core. Dijun, Tai, Fushi, Kuan-Peng, and several Sage to Be, as well as the Bell of Chaos, a top Khanate cardinal treasure, as the eye of the formation, 365 acquired spiritual treasures, the Zhoutian Star Banners, 365 demon experts, and 14,800 small Zhoutian Star Banners, as well as 14,800 golden immortals of the Demon Clan. If it was Fong Qingshan who set it up now, it would naturally be incomparable. After all, the trump cards in his hands were completely incomparable to those of Dijun and the others. First of all, he had the Zhoutian Star Formation map. With the formation map, the formation would be more condensed and its power would naturally increase. It was obviously much more advanced than relying on the Star Banners. Secondly, the Demon Clan Suppression Formation relied on a formation within a formation, the Book of the Luo River Diagram Formation, and the Bell of Chaos, a Khanate cardinal treasure. What about Fong Qingshan? He also had the Book of Luo River Diagram, and he also knew how to use the Book of Luo River Diagram Array. Not only this array, he also had the 9 Bins Yellow River Array, which wasn't any weaker. Even though Fong Qingshan rarely used this array, it wasn't that he couldn't use it, it was just that he didn't have many opportunities to use it. Chapter 13:12. The Yellow River of 9 Bins Array was no weaker than the Book of Luo River Diagram. Back then, Cloudy Sky and the other two even dared to challenge the primordial Lord of Heaven with this array. Although the ignorant were fearless, one could see how powerful this array was. Otherwise, where did the 3 sky fairies get their confidence from? Moreover, although Fong Qingshan hadn't used this array, it had been upgraded along with the Timeless Arc after it had been integrated into the Timeless Arkansas. Now, although it couldn't compare to the Zhoutian Star Array, it was much stronger than before. With the Yellow River of 9 Bins Array and the Book of Luo River Diagram as the core of the array and the principle of the 10,000 Immortal Array and the Zhoutian Star Array, the power of this array was self-evident. As for the Bell of Chaos, it had fallen into the hands of Fong Qingshan, just like the Book of Luo River Diagram. Moreover, he didn't just have the Bell of Chaos, he also had the Life and Death Gourd, the Thunderclap Flag, the Chaos Demonic Horn, and even the Timeless Arkansas. Although the Timeless Arc hadn't advanced to the supreme level, its power was definitely above the Bell of Chaos. Generally speaking, whatever the demon race had, Fong Qingshan had. Moreover, his Mount Buzhou was of a higher quality. What the demon race didn't have, Fong Qingshan had too. As for the people who set up the array, there were 365 Zenith Heaven Golden Immortals and 14,800 Golden Immortals of the demon race. Did they really think that Fong Qingshan was alone? One had to know that he had the Eternal Barracks, a treasure specially used to train Dao soldiers. Although this treasure hadn't been used since Fong Qingshan obtained it, it was the same as the Yellow River of 9 Bins Array. Now, the strongest Tao soldiers in the Eternal Barracks were at the primordial chaos realm. Although they were only at the early stage, similar to Shura Sovereign and the others, there were still a few of them. There were dozens of quasi-sages, hundreds of peak quasi-sages, hundreds of late-stage quasi-sages, thousands of mid-stage quasi-sages, and tens of thousands of early-stage quasi-sages. As for those below quasi-sage, none at all. Fang Qingshan had chosen the path of elite soldiers. Only the fittest survived. Those who could not pass the test would naturally disappear, and those who remained would be nurtured with all their might. Thinking about it, if there were 365 origin immortals, quasi-sages, peak stage of sage to be, and late stage of sage to be, and 14,800 origin immortals who were at least in the early stage of sage to be, and they were Dao soldiers, their cooperation would be much better than that of ordinary people. Plus, Fang Qingshan, Yang Mei, and the others were in charge of setting up a formation. It might not be able to suppress deathless beings, but it could easily kill hundreds or thousands of origin Dao immortals. What a great Zhodian star formation. I'm afraid it's already at the level of a top-notch second-level formation. If it's completely set up by a primordial origin expert, I'm afraid it's not impossible to suppress an immortal or trap a god emperor. After listening to Fang Qingshan's story, Jiang Mingyue sighed with emotion. A formation could be said to be precious, but it could also be said to be not precious. It was not because of its value, but because it was difficult to exert its power in the hands of an individual, especially those peerless formations. Those like the immortal slaying sword formation were fine, but those like the Zhodian star formation were very troublesome to set up. But for sects and clans, it was especially precious, because it could become the last line of defense for a sect or clan. Many sects and clans declined, and in the end, they directly announced that they would seal their mountains. After a period of time, they recovered. What did they rely on? Wasn't it because these peerless formations could be the last line of defense for them, buy them time, and make a comeback? Jiang Mingyue and the others did not expect that Fang Qingshan not only had such a formation, but also a set of Dao soldiers. This was really a pleasant surprise. With these two items, coupled with the timeless arc, once Fang Qingshan grew up, he could immediately establish a great force. Of course, although they were emotional, they were just surprised. After all, even without Fang Qingshan, with Jiang Mingyue's trump card, they would not be afraid of a primordial chaos expert. They were thinking about how Fang Qingshan would deal with an immortal realm expert. Senior brother, did you forget about my timeless arc? After talking about the Zhodian star formation and how to deal with a primordial chaos expert, Fang Qingshan smiled faintly. Timeless arc? Jiang Mingyue frowned. She had seen Fang Qingshan's timeless arc before, and it was only a supreme one. Although it was sharper than an ordinary supreme one, it could at most circle around the primordial chaos expert. It was somewhat insufficient to deal with an immortal realm expert. Even if he used the Zhodian star formation just now, he was afraid that he could only trap an early-stage immortal realm expert at most. If there were more people, or if they were stronger, he was afraid that he would be devoured. Could it be? Suddenly, Jiang Mingyue's heart skipped a beat. Her eyes lit up as she looked at Fang Qingshan. She knew that Fang Qingshan was not a person who boasted. Since he dared to ask this, he was obviously confident. Therefore, there was only one explanation. Could it be that Junior Brother's timeless arc is about to advance to the supreme level? That's right. Fang Qingshan smiled and nodded. Compared to Yang Mei and Daoist tribulation transcendence, no one can stop the advancement of the timeless Arkansas. They can only watch. Before the advancement, it can definitely help us by some time. After the advancement, there will not be a period of weakness. Even if we can't win, it will be more convenient if we want to leave. If the timeless arc needed to advance, he would have no choice but to integrate the 24 grades Red Lotus of Fire into the timeless Arkansas. But now the arrow was already on the bowstring, and it had to be released. Moreover, the goodies should not be allowed to flow into others' fields. Although Fang Qingshan was reluctant, compared to his own safety, the numinous treasure was obviously not that important. Not to mention a numinous treasure, even a clone would serve the main body. Good. After listening to Fang Qingshan's words, Jiang Mingyue was completely relieved. Once the timeless arc advanced to the supreme level, before the breakthrough, the others could only watch helplessly. As for causing trouble, that would be the equivalent of hanging oneself. Jiang Mingyue sneered. She was afraid that they would not dare to do so. Thinking back to the time when the desolation was in, Hong Jun had suffered a great loss, which led to his death. If he had not integrated with the path, he was afraid that he would have died. Even so, Hong Jun Tiandao was still implicated and suffered heavy losses. As for after the timeless arc advanced to the supreme level, there was no need to worry. It could still delay for a period of time, because at that time, the power of the timeless arc would be enough to suppress ordinary immortal realm experts. Moreover, with the speed of the timeless arc, as long as it did not fall into a trap and was surrounded, and as long as the other party did not have a speed-type divine ability or numinous treasure, even if it wanted to escape, they would not be able to catch up in a short time. Of course, if this still could not delay the arrival of Jiang, Overlord, and the others, Jiang Mingyue could only admit defeat. This was fate. They could only hope that the Dao sect would avenge them. However, this was only what Jiang Mingyue and the others thought. For Fang Qingshan, he still had the all-heaven chessboard as a way out. However, in this regard, he naturally would not say it out loud. Chapter 13:13. The heaven chessboard was Fang Qingshan's first treasure and the key to his rise. Later, as he acquired the timeless arc and other treasures, he began to use it less and less. But this didn't mean that the treasure was weak. It was just that the treasure's original function was to travel. Its defense and attack were all supplementary. Plus, it had other treasures that weren't often used, so it seemed weak. But this was only on the surface. The treasure wasn't weak. On the contrary, it was very strong. Everything else aside, just in terms of potential. Fang Qingshan observed that it wasn't any weaker than the timeless Arkansas. In fact, it was even stronger. The timeless arc's advancement was similar to the mosquito Dorn's advancement. As long as there were enough resources, it could continue to advance. In the end, it could even become the real timeless Arkansas. It might not be comparable to the eternal lotus, but it would undoubtedly become an existence on the level of an emperor god. The heaven chessboard's advancement only required luck. With enough luck, it could continue to advance. Compared to the eternal heavenly arc, which required the eternal blessing to advance, the all-heavens chessboard had much more freedom. There were no such restrictions. The timeless arc was comparable to an emperor god. When the heaven chessboard evolved to a sufficiently powerful level, it wouldn't be weak either. Therefore, Fang Qingshan had never told anyone about this treasure. That was because this was his final trump card. Even if he lost the eternal heavenly vessel, with this treasure, he could still make a comeback. Also, the most important thing was that the timeless arc couldn't be taken away when it reached a certain level. But the heaven chessboard might not be the same. If someone found out and an expert tried to steal it, Fang Qingshan wouldn't be able to resist. Therefore, he wouldn't use the heaven chessboard if he didn't have to. Fang Qingshan's words made Jiang Mingyue and the others feel a little more at ease. On the other hand, Yang Mei, after experiencing the first lightning strike of the second level, almost failed miserably and was doomed eternally. He put away all his thoughts. He didn't dare to take risks and use the lightning strikes to train himself. At the very least, he didn't dare to do nothing and just wait for the lightning to strike. Instead, he used all kinds of martial arts to weaken and destroy the lightning tribulation as much as possible. Then, if he could control the intensity of the lightning tribulation, he could temper it again. Just as Yang Mei cast the Nirvana divine ability and had just recovered from his injuries, the second lightning tribulation struck down once again. This lightning tribulation was smaller than the first lightning tribulation. Its color was also darker, and its speed was naturally faster. Compared to the first lightning tribulation, its power had increased by at least 50%. Spatial laceration. Yang Mei didn't dare to wait for the lightning dragon to land. With a roar, he unleashed his spatial divine ability. However, in an instant, black sawtooth-shaped ripples suddenly appeared around Yang Mei. These ripples were densely packed, and they cut the void continuously, emitting a series of ear-piercing sounds. For a moment, the surrounding space was like a shattered mirror. It was covered with hideous cracks. The lightning tribulations fell and collided with each other. The sawtooths that were supposed to cut through the world seemed to have hit an iron plate, making a series of wooden cutting sounds. The scales on the lightning dragon's body produced bright sparks like fireworks. However, apart from delaying the lightning dragon and tearing its scales, it couldn't go any further. Void collapsed. Seeing that the spatial laceration seemed to have little effect, although it slightly delayed the lightning dragon's falling speed, it was still steadily charging towards him. If he didn't think of any other way, after the spatial laceration was completely broken, he would at most weaken the power of the lightning tribulation by 30%. The rest would still be stronger than the first lightning tribulation. Therefore, almost as soon as Yang Mei realized that something was wrong, he used his second divine ability. In an instant, there was a strange rhythm in the void, as if it had adjusted to the frequency of heaven and earth, causing a resonance. The hideous cracks that were originally formed because of the spatial laceration began to distort at this moment. In an instant, a loud sound erupted. The void trembled, and the originally fragmented space seemed to be completely unable to bear the burden. In an instant, it collapsed, forming an endless abyss. Moreover, this abyss turned into a whirlpool, constantly rotating. For a time, endless turbulence swept over, swallowing the heavens and earth. The lightning dragon was naturally no exception. However, the collapsing space and the rotating black hole were not so easy to swallow the lightning dragon. The lightning dragon let out a roar, and its body instantly shrank by a large margin. It seemed that this way, the area it was exposed to was smaller, and the damage it suffered was less. Its power was more condensed, and its attack was more powerful. Then, the divine dragon stretched out its claws, grabbing both sides of the rotating black hole and forcefully tearing it apart. Not only did it instantly stop the lightning dragon from being swallowed, but also stopped the black hole's rotation. There were even faint signs of the black hole being destroyed. Explode. Seeing this scene, Yang Mei's eyes flashed, and without saying a word, he raised his hand. Bang! In an instant, the newly formed black hole exploded, and an unparalleled force swept out. The lightning dragon, which was originally about to tear apart the black hole and continue attacking Yang Mei, was met with a disaster this time. A sharp destructive force erupted and instantly wrapped around the lightning dragon. In an instant, the scales that were originally unparalleled in defense, which were comparable to precious treasures, were instantly torn apart and fell to the ground. In particular, a few claws bore the brunt of the impact and were immediately torn apart. In an instant, blood dyed the sky. The scales, the membrane, the muscles, the bones from the outside to the inside, the lightning dragon's body, layer by layer, cracked inch by inch. In the end, it was annihilated and turned into mottled lightning particles that dissipated into space. Phew! Seeing the lightning dragon and the black hole disappear together, Yang Mei could not help but let out a sigh of relief. However, his expression did not relax at all. Instead, it became even more serious. This time, he had only used 2 space techniques to destroy the lightning dragon, and he himself was unharmed. He seemed to be in a much better condition than before. However, it should be noted that after using the 2 space techniques, he had directly consumed 20% of the qi in his body. Furthermore, this was only the second lightning trial of the second tribulation of Tao. There were still 7 more to come. Needless to say, there were 9 lightning strikes of the third tribulation of Tao. That power would double the foundation of the second tribulation of Tao. Although Yang Mei still had peerless techniques and natal spiritual treasures that he had yet to use, he still only had a 30 to 70% chance of winning. Whether or not he could handle it was a problem. Even if he could handle it, the consumption would also be a problem. However, the arrow was already on the bowstring and had to be released. He could only fight with his life, because if he fought, he would still have a chance to survive. If he did not fight, only death would await him. After the second lightning strike, the dark clouds in the sky became even denser and gloomier. Endless dark red and purple lightning rolled in the dark clouds and flickered endlessly. It gathered from all directions, and its color was dyed even deeper. Chapter 13:14. Without giving Yang Mei much time to catch his breath, the third god's trial arrived just as he had just replenished his qi. The power of the third god's trial was 5 times stronger than the second god's trial. All of a sudden, the qi that permeated the air was getting heavier and more oppressed. Yang Mei didn't mind this at all, because fear was useless. Instead, the god's trial might take advantage of it. Plus, this was only the third god's trial. He could handle it. All he needed to do was to focus and wait. Repeating the same pattern, raising his eyebrows, he continued to cast his divine abilities. If one technique didn't work, then he would use 2. If regular techniques didn't work, then he would use top-tier techniques. All kinds of spatial divine abilities were displayed in his hands one after another. Some were collapsing, some were cutting, some were stopping, some were reversing, and some were moving. All of them had their uses. Though their powers varied, they were all different, and so on and so forth. 1 ray, 2 rays, 3 rays, 4 rays. Yang Mei finally made it through the second god's trial. Phew! Seeing that the second god's trial was over, it would take some time before the third god's trial descended. At this moment, Yang Mei relaxed. Like a pile of mud, he sat on the ground. He was gasping for air. If another god's trial came, he wouldn't be able to hold on, or he would have to use his trump card. It wasn't that he couldn't use it. It was just that if he used it now, what would he do against the even more powerful god's trial? Therefore, he could only persevere. Unless he had no other choice, he wouldn't dare to use it. Then, he felt like an ordinary person who hadn't rested for 10 days and nights and had been tortured and tortured. Exhaustion and pain welled up inside him. The exhaustion was due to the high level of concentration, and the consumption of the mind was too great. Even with Yang Mei's cultivation, it was a bit hard for him to endure. When he relaxed, he instantly wanted to close his eyes and sleep until the sky was dark and the earth was dark. Sadly, this was just a thought. Ignoring the fact that the god's trial wasn't over yet, the physical pain alone was enough to make him toss and turn in bed. Excruciating pain. Endless excruciating pain, an intense pain that penetrated deep into his bones, soul, and true spirit. An astonishing pain came from all over his body. It was the kind of pain that came from being smashed into pieces. It hurt every cell in his body. Even if he wanted to cut off his senses, he could not reduce the pain in the slightest. Although he had already experienced it, whether it was the great tribulation of creation back then, or the previous tribulation of Tao. We've all been in this situation. However, experiencing such a situation again still made him feel like dying. This kind of thing wasn't something that one could get used to after experiencing it a few times. On the contrary, the more they experienced it, the more vivid it would be in their memories. It was unforgettable, and the pain was unbearable. From the outside, Yang Mei looked as if he had been roasted by lightning. There was not a single part of his body that was unharmed, and there was almost no vitality. Those who didn't know would think that he was already dead and his life force had been severed. The second Tao tribulation wasn't like the first Tao tribulation, which came one after another without giving anyone a chance to breathe. However, the time interval between them wouldn't be too long. Most importantly, the second Tao tribulation's thunder tribulation was much more powerful than the first. Even though Yang Mei used his mystic powers, it wasn't that easy to deal with it. It wasn't that he couldn't, but that the consumption was too great. Within a short period of time, Yang Mei had to weaken himself, deal with the thunder tribulation, heal his injuries, and recover his dermic powers. It was impossible. Every time he dealt with a thunder tribulation, he swallowed healing elixirs and elixirs to recover his dermic powers, circulated his cultivation technique, and inhaled and exhaled spirit qi. Even though he was doing everything at the same time, before he could fully recover from his injuries and recover his essence qi, the next thunder tribulation would come again. Just like that, the cycle repeated. The injuries on Yang Mei's body were getting more and more serious. His essence qi was getting lesser and lesser. By now, his dermic powers were almost on the verge of drying up. Sigh. Yang Mei let out a long sigh. With his tenacious willpower, he struggled to get up within a breath. He took out all sorts of treasures and gulped them down like drinking water, in order to recover his injuries and dermic powers as quickly as possible. That was because the third tribulation of Tao had already begun to accumulate power. Now, he was racing against time to see if the tribulation lightning would fall first or if he could recover faster. If he won, he would win. He would break through to the immortal realm and open a new chapter. If he lost, he would die and his Tao would disappear. Many of these treasures had reached the peak of level 1, and some are even level 2. As for the level 2 treasures, apart from his own, the rest were given to him by Fong Qingshan and Jiang Mingwei. Previously, when he was going through the tribulation, the power of the thunder tribulation had concealed him, so the treasures Yang Mei took did not attract much attention. Now that they saw how rich he was, everyone was jealous and wanted to snatch them from his hands. It should be noted that the value of these healing and recovery treasures that Yang Mei had taken had already surpassed the wealth of an early-stage immortal realm expert. It was only because Yang Mei had the backing of a newborn chaos world, and he was a top-notch demon god that he had such a foundation. The greedy gazes of others naturally did not affect Yang Mei. At this moment, apart from the part of his mind that was focused on the thunder tribulation as a warning, the rest of his primordial spirit had already sunk into a meditative state. This was the best state for cultivation, and it was the fastest way to recover. Blessings and blessings came from his fortunes. Although the thunder tribulation had almost killed Yang Mei, and he was in so much pain that it could drive him crazy, he even regretted going through the tribulation. But the reward was proportional to the effort. After going through so many hardships, Yang Mei had gained a lot. The thunder tribulation was a tribulation and also a predestined fate. It not only contained the power of destruction, but also the power of creation. Not to mention the fact that he had devoured and digested so many treasures. It was enough for Yang Mei to improve further. There can be no construction without destruction, and then there can be construction after destruction. Not to mention the increase in combat power. Just the strengthening of one's foundation was enough to make people scramble. It should be noted that many people were trapped in a realm for tens of thousands of years, hundreds of thousands of years, and even could not break through in their lifetime because their foundation had been exhausted. This was the case with Uncle Wang. This time, Yang Mei did not use his body and nomological laws to resist the thunder tribulation. But sometimes, supernatural powers could not completely eliminate the thunder tribulation. The remaining attacks on his body would destroy his essence, qi, spirit, nomological laws, and true spirit, and then be repaired. It was also tempering. But compared to the first Tao tribulation, because his body could not withstand it, the thunder tribulation was weakened. Therefore, the harvest this time was not inferior to the previous David decay and the first Tao tribulation. Although it was still only a doubling, it was naturally not the same on a different base. At this moment, Yang Mei sensed himself. He should not be worse than Pangu in the past. Even so, Yang Mei did not dare to let his guard down. Because he was growing, the power of the thunder tribulation was also increasing. Chapter 13:15. Demons grew 1 foot, Tao grew 10 feet. Although everyone was improving, Yang Mei knew that the lightning tribulation's growth rate and intensity were definitely higher than his. That was why he couldn't let his guard down. The first lightning tribulation of the second Tao tribulation made him suffer. If it weren't for the fact that he had some tricks up his sleeves, he would have been consigned to eternal damnation. He didn't know how much time had passed. It could have been a split second or a long time. At some point, Yang Mei's forehead twitched. The trace of primordial spirit he left outside rang like an alarm clock. The third Tao tribulation had arrived. During the first Tao tribulation, the lightning tribulation was still scarlet with a tinge of purple. The lightning fire was like lava. During the second Tao tribulation, The color had deepened to a dark red. It was like a blood flame, similar to the true flame cultivated by mosquito dowrin. The third lightning tribulation hadn't descended yet, but it had already turned purple and black. It was like a demonic fire of destruction. The range of the lightning tribulation was getting wider. If it was like a lake at the beginning, then the second tribulation was like a sea. Now, the thunderclouds were like a small world. Jiang Mingyue's group and the people from the light chaotic world retreated again and again. They were afraid of being sucked in by the tribulation clouds. If it caused Yang Mei's tribulation to mutate, it would be bad if it harmed them. As for the void beasts that were attracted by the commotion, they turned around and fled. Compared to intelligent beings, these beasts weren't at all inferior in terms of seeking good fortune and avoiding calamity. The sea of clouds surged, shaking the four seas and 8 desolaces. Thunder dragons surged and roared. Tribulation energy continuously gathered from all directions. Not to mention looking at it. Even closing one's eyes would make one shudder with fear. Fang Qingshan wouldn't be able to compare to this tribulation energy, even if he had experienced several cultivation tribulations. Although the range wasn't as wide as the cultivation tribulations, the quality was much better. Rumble. The thunder dragon that had turned into a black dragon roared. Those who didn't know would have thought that it was an immortal being from the dragon chaotic world. Actually, at this point, even though the lightning tribulation still wasn't a real life form, it was no different from a real life form. He used the spiritual chi of heaven and earth to forge his body and captured the experts of heaven and earth to brand his spirit. The lightning dragon in front of him was a physical body formed by tribulation lightning. It was the imprint left behind by a member of the dragon clan who had once passed the immortal tribulation. This kind of lightning tribulation was obviously much more lively and flexible than the one created by the heavens and earth. Its combat power might not increase by much, but it was much more difficult to deal with. Yang Mei, who had been in a daze all this while, suddenly opened his eyes and stood up. Then he took out the green willow staff, a top-notch second-grade treasure, and stood ready for battle. Boom! The first lightning strike of the third Tao tribulation struck down from the sky. However, if one did not pay attention, they would subconsciously overlook it. If that was really the case, they would probably be in deep trouble. This was because as the black light streaked across, cracks in the void were like the calm surface of a lake being blown by a breeze. Layers of ripples appeared, and the cracks looked ferocious. It was as if a terrible blunt knife was cutting it back and forth. It was even more terrifying than the spatial cutting that Yang Mei had used before. Even the void was unable to withstand the shock waves emitted by the thunder dragon. They were filled with terrifying power. This did not mean that the void was weak. It could only mean that the void here had become thinner. After experiencing the 5 decays of Deva and 2 tribulations of the way, coupled with the manifestation of the Great Path, the void here was indeed thinner than other places. Therefore, the void was easily torn apart. Otherwise, without the power of a God Emperor, it would not be so easy to tear apart the void. As for God Emperors, not to mention tearing apart the void, even destroying the void would not be a difficult task. This was also why God Emperors did not easily make a move. First, there were people below them to help take care of trivial matters. Second, if they made a move, it would be too destructive. Just like in the Desolation, when saints made a move, they had the power to destroy heaven and earth. Although the infinite void was slightly better at the God Emperor realm, they would try not to make a move if they could. Oppressive. The atmosphere was extremely oppressive. Even Fang Qingshan and the others, who bore the brunt of the attack, felt suffocated by just a little bit of the aftershock, let alone Fang Qingshan who bore the brunt of the attack. Putting themselves in their shoes, under the premise that they did not use their trump cards, there was probably no one present who dared to say that they could withstand this lightning. It would be a blessing to be seriously injured, but it was very likely that they would be turned into ashes. Kill! Yang Mei took a deep breath and raised the green willow staff in his hand. Endless sharp aura suddenly swallowed and spat out. The green willow staff was not only a top second-level treasure, but it was also Yang Mei's path-proving spiritual treasure. It was the treasure that was most suitable for him, and it was even better than a spiritual treasure. It could unleash 100% or even 200% of its power. In addition, in order to better unleash the power of the space magic and the green willow staff, he had specially created a set of space staff techniques to be used with the green willow staff. As such, it was like adding wings to a tiger. However, as the green willow staff waved, a supreme artistic conception rose endlessly. In an instant, an avatar soared into the sky behind him. In the boundless void, a huge hollow willow was entrenched, and 3,000 willow branches were hanging down in the void. Those who did not know would think that Yang Mei had revealed his true body. Opposite him was a man with coiled muscles, and his aura was integrated. He was standing on a 36-stage green lotus and holding a divine axe. This person was very familiar to Feng Qingshan. It was Pan Gu. At a certain moment, Pan Gu's hand formed a seal, and a divine lightning comparable to the second Tao tribulation fell. In an instant, the void was shattered, and the earth, fire, water, and wind were born. It was unstoppable, and its sharpness was endless. It was no worse than the tribulation lightning that fell. However, the hollow willow was like a boulder in the river. The river flowed without turning or moving, but a vortex appeared on the trunk and swallowed the divine lightning. Then, with a slight tremble, a trace of lightning floated on the surface for a moment, and there was no other movement. The staff broke through the sky. Pan Gu was the deepest fear in Yang Mei's heart. Although he had escaped the great trial of creation, and although Pan Gu had died, it still troubled him. If he could not break through it, it would turn into a demon in his heart, and he did not know when it would take his life. Therefore, while Yang Mei was healing, he began to think about how to break through the maze. Fortunately, after experiencing the Deva's decay and 2 Tao tribulations, he finally got rid of the knot in his heart. At the same time, he used it to understand and perfect this technique. As expected, it was the result of Yang Mei breaking through the maze. He waved his staff, and the laws of space became violent. It directly hit the descending lightning. The staff and the lightning clashed, and the stalemate lasted for a moment. Both paused for a moment, and then the spatial energy was the first to shatter. But at the same time, the lightning tribulation's power had been weakened by 30%, but it still continued to descend. Chapter 13:16. Again, seeing this, Yang Mei did not look dispirited at all. Instead, he looked excited. He had never thought that one strike would be able to break through the God's trial. That was unrealistic. After all, this was the third God's trial of Tao. It had already surpassed the attacks of those who had just broken through to the immortal realm. Yet, he was able to weaken it by 30% with one strike, and he was unharmed. What did this mean? It meant that his strength had truly reached the immortal realm, because only the power of the immortal realm could counter the power of the immortal realm. This also meant that, to him, Pan Gu was now a thing of the past. After all, while Pan Gu was strong, he had not broken through. Once he broke through, it would be the beginning of a breakthrough. Waving the staff, waving the staff, waving the staff. Therefore, he raised his eyebrows excitedly and continuously waved his staff to attack. Every strike was light and casual, but every strike was done with all his might. Moreover, the power of the next strike was not any weaker than the previous one. In fact, it seemed to have the effect of accumulating power. There was no end to it. The more he fought, the braver he became. The first thunder tribulation of the third Tao tribulation continued to be struck and weakened. Its power became weaker and weaker. When it struck Yang Mei, its power was not much better than the first thunder tribulation. Before Yang Mei's transformation, this kind of power would not have caused him any serious injuries. Now, it was even more impossible for it to hurt Yang Mei. Of course, the effects of body tempering were not satisfactory. Yang Mei did not care about this at all. He was at the last moment. Whether or not he could temper his body was secondary. As long as he could survive the last few strikes, everything would be fine. What he had to ensure was that he would not get hurt, or at least not get hurt. Because compared to tempering his body and recovering his mana, healing was obviously more troublesome. Of course, while Yang Mei was not hurt, he was not in a good state either. After all, he had used the spiritual treasures and the accompanying techniques. The mana in his body was like a flood that had opened the floodgates. In an instant, more than 40% of his mana had been consumed. Fortunately, Yang Mei's body had not completely digested the various treasures he had swallowed earlier, and there were still some recovery treasures in his mouth. In addition, the lightning was actually helping Yang Mei speed up the digestion process. Therefore, he was recovering automatically at every moment. It was just that the speed was a problem. Just when almost everyone's attention was focused on Yang Mei's tribulation, more and more people gathered around unknowingly. They seemed to be attracted by Yang Mei's tribulation. The people from the light, chaotic world who were focused on their tribulation didn't care much about it. However, the people from the lifeless demon palace realized that something was wrong. They looked at each other, and their eyes were filled with strange sparks. At the same time, Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue's hearts were in their throats. Because these people weren't from the light, chaotic world. Perhaps it could be said that most of them were fugitives who had been chasing after them for a year. How did Fang Qingshan and the others distinguish them? Firstly, it was naturally because they came from the wrong direction. Most of them came from the direction that Fang Qingshan and the others came from. Even though there were some who came from the light, chaotic world, the ones who came later might have come from the light, chaotic world's teleportation array. On the other hand, it was naturally because these people were different from ordinary people. They hid their heads and showed their tails. They were either shrouded in cloaks or shrouded in a cloud of black fog, making it impossible to see their faces clearly or sense their corresponding aura. At the same time, these people were full of malice towards Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue, and they didn't hide it at all. Most importantly, Fang Qingshan's book of Luo River Diagram predicted that the tribulation was imminent, and Jiang Mingyue's danger perception reminded her that she was in imminent danger. Looks like they're ready to make a move. Jiang Mingyue's expression was a little ugly, and her mouth moved slightly as she transmitted a message to Fang Qingshan. What do we do now? She originally thought that even if these people wanted to make a move, they would wait for Yang Mei to finish his tribulation. She didn't expect them to make a move earlier. This was a little troublesome. After all, they were separated from Yang Mei. Not only could they not gather their strength, but they would also lose sight of one. In fact, what Jiang Mingyue didn't know was that the people from Lifeless Demon Palace who had arrived earlier would have concealed their identities and made a move earlier if they didn't know that they were the ones undergoing the tribulation. They didn't make a move earlier because they didn't conceal their identities, and there were even some experts present. They were afraid of being exposed, and they didn't have the confidence to capture them in one go. Naturally, it was different now. They had many allies, and their strength had increased greatly. Most importantly, these people had concealed their identities. Once they made a move, the situation would be chaotic. They would take advantage of the chaos to conceal their identities and then make a move. It's still the same saying. We'll deal with it when it comes. Fang Qingshan did not take it to heart and said calmly. He said calmly, if they make a move, I'll cast the Zhodian star array to trap them. If I can't trap them, I'll directly enter the timeless Arkansas. Then what about Taoist Yang Mei? Jiang Mingyue asked. There's still some time before he undergoes the tribulation. There shouldn't be any problems during that time. Moreover, I've already given him a receiving token. As long as he successfully undergoes the tribulation, he can crush it immediately and enter the timeless arc before anyone else can react. That's for the best. Jiang Mingyue heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that Fang Qingshan had already made arrangements. Kill. As expected, just as they finished their discussion, they saw that those people couldn't wait to make a move. Yang Mei couldn't move because he was undergoing the tribulation. Moreover, if he moved now, he would probably get into trouble. However, they could take down Jiang Mingyue first. Moreover, Jiang Mingwei was from the Jiang family and the Dowell sect. It was very likely that the Storm Sword token and most of the resources were with her. As long as they took her down, they could ignore Yang Mei. Countless terrifying roars could be heard. Immediately, the people in a light, chaotic world, who had been quietly observing the Tao tribulation, suddenly became chaotic. This was because many people in black suddenly appeared around them. They were immediately startled. Without saying a word, they immediately took out their magic and spirit treasures to protect themselves. Fortunately, these people weren't targeting them. They were targeting Jiang Mingwei and the others. Even so, it still gave them a fright. After all, these people reeked of blood. Obviously, they were people who lived on the edge of a knife all year round. Moreover, although their cultivation levels weren't considered strong, they were all at the late-stage primordial chaos realm or above. Most importantly, there were too many of them. There were hundreds and thousands of them. A large number of ants could kill an elephant. If these people didn't care about their lives and swarmed them together, even early-stage immortal realm experts would have to retreat. However, Fang Qingshan just sneered. He realized that although there were many people attacking, there were no immortal realm experts. In that case, why should he be afraid? Chapter 13:17. The infinite world turns into stars. A star map suppresses time and space. Zhodian star array, rise. Fang Qingshan laughed. His voice was not overpowered by the sound of Yang Mei's tribulation thunder. Instead, it reverberated like a valley, reverberating in all directions and spreading throughout the void. As the sound entered one's ears, it was as if thunder was ringing in one's mind. After hearing it, one could not help but feel an indescribable, terrifying killing intent, and a chill ran down one's spine. They felt a bone-piercing sharpness sweep over, and even their internal organs were faintly aching. Then, with a thought, they saw an infinite divine arc appear above Fang Qingshan's head. Although its grade was mediocre, no one dared to underestimate it. This was because it emitted wisps of eternal Taoist rhymes that were intoxicating. In a flash, a scroll flew out from the timeless arc, hovered in the sky for a while, and slowly unfolded. In the blink of an eye, it turned into a starry sky. Buzz, buzz, buzz. Then, like a pitch-black night, lights were lit up one after another. Or perhaps fireworks were blooming nonstop. The stars shone brightly, and in an instant, the originally somewhat dark void was suddenly illuminated by a frosty white light. More importantly, the entire starry sky exuded an incomparably fierce aura that made one shudder, as if there was a blade on one's back. Whoosh! This was just the beginning. Then, a giant yellow dragon soared into the sky, followed by a white horse and a giant turtle. They landed in the center of the starry sky. The yellow dragon circled around and turned into a winding river. The horse transformed into a picture, and the turtle spat out a book. The book, the picture, and the river organically combined to evolve into a 9-palace 8 trigrams diagram. These two were not ordinary. The yellow dragon was the 9-bend yellow river diagram, which evolved into the 9-palace great array. The white horse and the giant turtle were the river diagram of the Book of Luo, which evolved into the 8 trigrams diagram. The 9-palace 8 trigrams diagram then combined into one to evolve into the 9-palace 8 trigrams diagram. Dang, dang, dang. Dong, dong, dong. Following that, a series of bells rang out, followed by muffled drumbeats that sounded like muffled thunder. The bell of chaos and the formation breaking drum of beasts flew out and landed in the great array. A formation within a formation borrowed the principle of the 10,000 Immortals formation. The 9 palaces and 8 trigrams formation became the central hub of the Zhodian star formation. The Bell of Chaos was used to suppress space-time. As for the formation breaking drum of 10,000 beasts, its greatest effect was to boost the morale of the people who set up the formation. It was as if they had been injected with chicken blood and could increase their combat strength by more than 30%. Following the sound of bells and drums, a military camp appeared out of thin air. Golden spears, and armored horses filled the sky. War flags fluttered in the wind, and the middle gate was wide open. Light flashed, and a series of emotionless robots walked out one after another. After walking out, those people began to scatter below the starry sky with their fastest speed, landing on the stars. With a thought, he completely sank into the star and evolved into a star spirit. Of course, these people were not robots, but Tao soldiers. The so-called Tao soldiers were actually equivalent to the private soldiers of sects and clans. For guarding and conquering. These Tao soldiers were peerless Tao soldiers that Fang Qingshan had nurtured through the eternal military camp, a supreme treasure that specialized in nurturing Tao soldiers. In order to nurture them, Fang Qingshan had spent much more resources than the Shura sovereign. Every one of them emitted a shocking aura. Everyone present could easily crush them. After all, the strongest among them was only at the early stage primordial chaos, and the weakest was only at the early stage sage-to-be. However, no one dared to underestimate them at all. This was because their auras were very pure, and their iron-blooded killing intent soared into the sky. They were specialized in killing. However, they were different from the Wu people and the Shura clan. This was because they were organized, disciplined, and strictly followed orders. The most important thing was that they did not do anything. Their auras were also connected to each other like a whole. Those who did not know would think that they had already set up a large array. When they gathered together, the pressure they emitted was really like a mountain or a sea. It swept over and was not inferior to a peak primordial chaos experts. If that was the case, it would only be amazing, not frightening. After all, most of the people here were at the peak primordial chaos. Even if there was a gap, it would not be too big unless it was a difference between a titled expert and a non-titled expert. However, when these Tao soldiers turned into star spirits, which were like the demon gods who controlled the star streamers and set up the array, they were in perfect harmony with the large array. After strengthening the array, their power soared again. This was unacceptable because at this moment, the pressure in the large array had reached the immortal realm. The array map unfolded and swept like a tide with great momentum. In an instant, it rapidly expanded outwards at a speed visible to the naked eye, constantly covering the area. In the blink of an eye, it directly enveloped the area where Yang Mei and the Thunder Tribulation were. The sky and the ground formed a whole. Except for a small number of people, almost everyone was enclosed. It did not matter whether they were enemies or not. Then, the array map shook twice, as if it was adjusting its frequency. In a flash, it reached the same frequency as the void. Following that, the entire formation merged with the void and disappeared into thin air. Of course, Fang Qingshan and the others also disappeared. Damn it, what is this place? This seems to be a formation. What a great formation. It actually enclosed all of us in an instant. Judging by the power of this formation, I'm afraid it has reached the second level. Everyone who was drawn in by the array map, regardless of whether they were hostile to Jiang Mingwei and the others or not, in the face of an unfamiliar and dangerous environment, immediately used their magic and spiritual treasures to protect themselves and then carefully observe the situation around them. Fellow Taoist, there is no need to panic. This is the array map of my Zhoutian star formation. Because of an unexpected situation, some Taoists have been implicated. I'm really sorry, but don't worry. As long as you don't have any malicious intent towards me and stay where you are, you'll be fine. When I get rid of those fugitives, I will naturally remove the formation and let you Taoist out. I will then apologize in person. At this moment, an unfamiliar voice was heard. Damn it, I didn't expect them to have such a formation. Even a lion uses its full strength to catch a rabbit. It's true. What do we do now? What else can we do? Break the formation immediately, of course. Okay, let's do it together. After hearing what Fang Qingshan said, those with ill intentions were naturally enraged. They thought that taking down Fang Qingshan and the others would be a piece of cake. They didn't expect that they would be pecked in the eye by the goose and fall into Fang Qingshan's trap. As for the others who were implicated, although they were slightly relieved, they didn't immediately relax. One must not have the intention to harm others, but one must always be vigilant. What if after Fang Qingshan gets rid of the others, he turns around and deals with them? Therefore, these people were hesitant and didn't know if they should make a move or not. Chapter 13:18. Fellow Taoists, don't worry. I guarantee with the reputation of the Tao, Will sect, and the Jiang family, that as long as you don't have any bad intentions and don't wander around, nothing will happen. It seemed that Fang Qingshan and the others had guessed the thoughts of those people who had fallen into the formation. At that moment, Jiang Mingyue's voice was heard. Phew! Everyone was stunned at first. Then they couldn't help but let out a long sigh of relief. They had forgotten that Jiang Mingyue and the others were disciples of the Tao Will sect. With the Tao Will sect's name, they didn't dare to say that they could be 100% at ease. However, compared to breaking the formation, they were still willing to trust them. This was the result of the Tao Will sect's countless years of operation in the universe. For all living beings and many forces, besides the Tao Will sect's enemies, they were also its friends and those who wanted to be its friends. However, regardless of whether they were friends or enemies, they would always look up to the Tao Will sect. Putting aside the fact that the Tao Will sect was so righteous that even the true disciples of the top 100 supreme forces scrambled for it, just the fact that their disciples had never bullied others or killed innocents was enough to make people feel at ease. Otherwise, no matter what the reason was or who the person was, they wouldn't be willing to wait for death and place their hopes on others. They would definitely break the formation immediately. Moreover, if this matter were spread, they would be the ones in the right. After all, they were implicated and suffered an undeserved disaster. They were the victims themselves. However, for the sake of the Tao Will sect's reputation, these people calmed down and didn't make a move. However, even though they didn't make a move, the others didn't hesitate. Practically the instant they reacted, they made their moves. Let's see if your stars are better or mine are better. Smash! As soon as he finished speaking, a string of beads flew out. It was made up of a total of 36 pearls that shone with a pitch-black light. After it flew out, it grew with the wind and instantly turned into 36 ancient stars. They spun rapidly in the air and smashed straight toward the Zhoutian star formation. It was a little similar to the 36 oceanic divine pearls that Fang Qingshan once possessed. However, compared to the oceanic divine pearls, these stars were of a much higher grade. Me too. The heavenly king covers the earth tiger. The pagoda suppresses the river demon. Suppress. Following that, a pagoda with 49 floors flew out. Each floor was a top-notch Great Thousand World. When the two merged into one, it became a top-notch world of desolation, radiating boundless light of relics. It was as if there were countless Buddhas supporting it. The sound of Sanskrit reverberated, evolving into a world of bliss. It was just like how the desolation was converted by Zhuanti into a pure Buddhist kingdom, which was then suppressed. Void burying coffin, bury the void. It was a pitch-black demonic coffin with an unassuming appearance. It seemed no different from any other ordinary coffin. However, as its name suggested, it was capable of burying even the boundless void. While it was a little exaggerated, it was clear that it was no pushover. Actually, it wasn't an exaggeration, it was just a replica. There was a great monarch in the heavens called Great Monarch Zongkong. He had a supreme treasure of the four extremities, which was the sky-burying coffin. It indeed had the power to bury the heavens and the boundless void. Death descends and corrodes heaven and earth. In an instant, the wind and clouds surged, lightning flashed, and thunder rumbled. In a flash, pearls of various sizes fell onto a jade plate. In the blink of an eye, it was raining heavily. However, the rain was black and carried a deathly and ominous aura. Every time it hit, a pit would be formed. The vitality of any living creature that it touched would immediately be completely extinguished. For a moment, the primordial chaos experts trapped in the Zhoutian star array were like 8 immortals crossing the sea. They displayed their respective divine abilities. Although they didn't use their trump cards, They attacked with all their might. All sorts of divine abilities, numinous treasures, and mystic techniques came and went. They were colorful, and their power was naturally extraordinary. Back in the God-Conferment battle in the Desolation, Sect Master Tontian had used the immortal slaying sword array to fight Laozi and the other three. They were merely 5 saints, whose cultivation level was at most comparable to a mid-stage primordial chaos expert. However, they fought until the sky collapsed and the earth cracked. Fortunately, they didn't destroy the Desolation array. Now, the weakest among them was a late-stage primordial chaos expert. Their methods, divine abilities, and numinous treasures were not comparable to Laozi and the others. The most important thing was the number of people. When hundreds and thousands of them gathered and attacked together, their power was simply amazing. When a Jodion star array was set up successfully, the entire array was shrouded in layers of ferocious killing intent. The killing intent condensed into black clouds that were not inferior to Yang, May's tribulation cloud in the outside world. Anyone with a weaker cultivation level or an ordinary early-stage primordial chaos expert would probably lose themselves once they were contaminated by this killing intent. However, at this moment, before these people's divine abilities could fully erupt, the killing intent was directly dispersed. The billions of stars hanging high in the sky seemed to be unable to bear the burden and directly fell. Of course, this was not because Fang Qingshan had activated the array to attack, but because it had been shaken by the attacks of others. This was also because Fang Qingshan had used the 9 Palace 8 trigrams array and the Timeless Arc to suppress the array eye, as well as tens of thousands of primordial chaos experts who had set up the array. Otherwise, this attack alone would have been enough to tear the array apart. Upon seeing this scene, the people from the light chaotic world who had not made a move immediately felt shocked and secretly rejoiced. They had also experienced many twists and turns in their hearts. In the beginning, they had suddenly discovered that many unfamiliar men in black had suddenly appeared all around them. Moreover, they had an aggressive aura, killing intent, and a lingering killing intent, which had startled them. After all, anyone would have been frightened when they had suddenly made such a move without rhyme or reason. Fortunately, these people had not come for them. Unfortunately, if it was a blessing, it was not a curse. If it was a curse, they could not avoid it. Just a moment ago, they were still rejoicing that they had not come for them. Then, Fang Qingshan had used the Jodion star array to pull them in, which immediately made them feel like they had been F***ed up. They had wanted to observe the tribulation transcendence properly, but they had been involved in a battle. In particular, one side was a disciple of the Tao, sect, and the Jiang family. However, fortunately, they had the reputation of the Tao, sect, and the Jiang family. Although they had been involved in the array map, they were slightly relieved. After calming down, they began to have other thoughts. Looking at the current situation, it was obvious that the disciples of the Tao, sect had encountered great trouble. After all, they had provoked hundreds and thousands of primordial chaos experts to attack them at the same time. They did not know what kind of infuriating thing they had done. Even though there was a grand formation and the formation was very powerful, the situation was not optimistic. At this time, if they could help Jiang Mingyue and the others, even if they did not each get a favor from the Tao sect, they could at least form some good karma. However, they did not expect to see such a scene before they could make up their minds. They did not know that not everyone was trapped in the array. There were still some people who had not been trapped in the array, and they were experts at the immortal realm. If they knew, they would have been scared half to death. Even if Jiang Mingyue had promised them a favor, no one would have dared to help. Chapter 1319. It was important to know one's limits. It would have been fine if it had been the group of immortal realm experts who had left earlier, as the strongest among them was only at the peak of primordial chaos. Although a favor was good, they had to be alive to enjoy it, unless they sent a message to inform the experts of the sect now. However, they were trapped in the array and could not send a message out. Even if they could, they would probably have to think twice before acting. The Dao sect's favor was indeed good, but it had never been easy to obtain good things. Putting aside the fact that they didn't know what Jiang Mingwei and the others had done to cause so many people to act against them, even if they were in the right, to make enemies with so many people was one thing. However, if they were to drag their sect and family down with them, they would have no choice but to consider it carefully. Therefore, after thinking about it, these people felt that it was best to sit on the mountain and watch the tigers fight. These people were startled and instantly forgot about the strange feeling that had just arisen. Fang Qingshan did not know anything about this. Even if he knew, he would not care at all. After all, he had never regarded these people as helpers. Otherwise, when the Immortal Realm experts had invited Jiang Mingwei and the others, they would have gone with the flow or directly asked for help. Even earlier, they would not have left the merchant chaotic world. In the face of this earth-shattering attack, Fang Qingshan's expression did not change at all, as he had already expected this. After all, hundreds and thousands of primordial chaos experts were attacking together. Even if they were all ordinary primordial chaos experts who had relied on resources, they could not be underestimated. Quantitative change led to qualitative change, although they were only comparable to Immortal Realm experts now. Fortunately, his Zhodian star array was not easy to deal with. Soldiers were trained for 1,000 days to be used in a moment. Eternal Dao soldiers, attack together and activate the Zhodian star array with all your might. Kill them. Fang Qingshan coldly spat out a sentence and shouted, "Yes, my lord." Tens of thousands of Eternal Dao soldiers answered at the same time without any hesitation. His words were filled with firm confidence. Boom! In an instant, the Eternal Dao soldiers' star spirits on the 365 primary stars and 14,800 secondary stars attacked at the same time. There were Eastern Azure Dragon, Horned Wood Dragon, Kong Golden Dragon, D-Earth Raccoon Dog, Room Sun Rabbit, Heart Moon Fox, Tail Fire Tiger, Water Leopard of Winnowing Basket. There was the Northern Black Tortoise, the Fighting Wood Centipede, the Golden Bull Nyo, the Female Earth Bat, the Virtual Sun Rat, the Dangerous Moon Swallow, the Room Fire Pig, and the Wall Water Centipede. There were Western White Tiger, Kuei Wood Wolf, Lu Jean Dog, Stomach Pheasant, Angry Chicken, Bayou Wu, Fire Monkey, Water Ape. There was the Southern Vermilion Bird, the Wood Harpy, the Golden Goat, the Willow Earth Deer, the Sun Horse of Star, the Moon Deer of Extended Net, the Winged Fire Snake, the Jin Waterworm, the Rose Star, as well as the Cadus Star, the Moon North Star, the Purple Chi Star, the Northern Dipper Star, the Southern Dipper Star, the Seven Evil Stars, the Army Destroyer Star, even the Sun Golden Crow, the Moon Jade Rabbit, and the Purple Myrtle True Dragon. All the stars erupted with unprecedented power at the same time. The terrifying aura caused the surrounding void to collapse continuously, and the space-time turbulence swept over. Those who did not know better would have thought that the great Tao of stars had descended. When the Eternal Tao soldiers attacked, Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingwei did not stay idle. They sat in the 9 Palaces 8 trigrams array and activated the array to strengthen and regulate the Zhodian star array. When 2 were stacked together, the power was naturally far greater than 1 + 1. Rumble, a bolt from a blue. However, in the entire array map, endless starlight gathered and condensed. Nebulas were densely packed and rubbed against each other, producing lightning. Moreover, these lightning bolts were extremely dazzling and fierce. Although they might not be comparable to the third Tao tribulation outside, they were not inferior to the first or even the second. Moreover, unlike the Tao tribulation outside, this star lightning did not have the slightest power of creation. It was completely full of pure destruction and destruction. With a single strike, it could instantly erupt with the power to destroy a world. Buzz! The star lightning of the Zhodian star array collided with the mystical powers and spiritual treasures of the enemies from the chaotic world of Shang. In an instant, the entire star map shook. Fortunately, it did not directly break out of the void and reappear. What a great array! It's really impressive. After all, it's the Tao sect. Even a random disciple has such a technique. We really can't underestimate them. Yes, Even if we were trapped inside, I'm afraid it would take us some effort to escape. Should we attack? Let's wait and see. Since we've caught up, what else can they do? There's still time, no hurry. Although the array was isolated, the moment it appeared, it still could not hide from the immortal level experts outside. Seeing that so many primordial chaos experts had attacked together, but still could not gain the upper hand, everyone could not help but be amazed. In fact, the reason for this was naturally because of a clever combination of various reasons. One was naturally because of the infinite power of the Jotian star array, which in the hands of Fang Qingshan had erupted with combat power that was almost comparable to that of the immortal level experts. Moreover, although these people who were trapped in the Jotian star array attacked together, they did not practice how to cooperate. Although they attacked with all their strength, it seemed to be very intense. However, the effective components were less than 70%, and some of them even canceled each other out, which was a waste. Moreover, although they seemed to be together and could hear each other's voices, in fact, they had long been isolated in different spaces by the array. Therefore, their strength was not completely concentrated on one point. Most importantly, once they entered the array, their strength would be suppressed by at least 30%. Furthermore, the formation had fused with the void, so the defensive power of the formation was naturally stronger. Breaking through the formation was almost equivalent to breaking through the void. In fact, there is no need to mention the Jotian star array. Just the eternal Tao soldiers alone would definitely not be weaker than the Jotian star array if the power of 3,000 primordial chaos experts were to gather on one person and form a Tao soldier array. Once it erupted, it would also have domineering power. It would be enough to destroy everything. When the power of 3,000 primordial chaos Tao soldiers gathered together, even a title immortal level expert would be wary, let alone an ordinary immortal level expert. Therefore, if they were not evenly matched, Fang Qingshan's efforts and so many resources spent on the Eternal Barracks and the Jotian Star Array would probably be wasted. After a moment of stalemate, regardless of whether it was Fang Qingshan's Star Thunder or the various techniques of the enemy, all of them were annihilated. No one could do anything to the other. Damn it, I didn't expect this array to be so powerful. Seems like we won't be able to break the array unless we use our trump card. Now, everyone, let's not hide anymore. If we don't break the array as soon as possible, our suppression will become greater and greater. We will only consume energy without replenishing it. If this continues, it will probably be even more difficult later on. Yes, when the time comes, we will probably be exhausted to death. Chapter 1320. Those who could cultivate to the primordial chaos realm were obviously not fools. Even if they usually appeared to have some EQ and low IQ, that was only because they were wholeheartedly focused on cultivation. Otherwise, it was absolutely impossible for them to break through to the primordial chaos realm. Otherwise, did they think that cultivation was like drinking water and eating food, and that tribulations were just exposure to the sun and wind? After experiencing the first round of attacks, they immediately knew that their situation was not good. These people, who lived on the edge of a knife all year round, were the most vigilant and decisive. Once they realized that the situation was not good, they immediately used their trump cards. Kill. Someone took out a second-level treasure. Although it was not comparable to the green willow staff, it looked a little broken and seemed like it would collapse in the next moment. However, its power was absolutely not to be underestimated, because this treasure was similar to the life and death gourd in the past. Although it was broken, it could be used as a one-time talisman and had extreme power. The saber drew a mysterious trajectory in front of them and slashed down like a waterfall. The saber light that burst out from this saber pierced through the sky and earth. Someone threw out a thunderball, which was somewhat like a bomb. When it exploded, it was like a pear flower in a storm. Black lightning shot out in all directions, directly destroying everything. Those who did not know would think that they had entered a chaotic world of thunder and lightning. Someone took out a talisman, and in a flash, a huge hand that covered the sky formed. Although the knuckles were like bones, the palm was more like a cage. Everything in the world, including the infinite great Tao, seemed to be imprisoned in it. Someone used a secret technique, and the aura of his body rose again and again. In a flash, he broke through the limit and reached the immortal realm. When he attacked, every move was infinitely powerful. Someone directly sacrificed billions of living beings and used the altar to exchange for evil power from the unseen world. Humph, do you think that I can't do anything to you? How naive. Fang Qingshan sneered. Since they had taken out their trump cards, he naturally could not let them down. Star destruction, world destruction, buzz. As soon as Fang Qingshan's voice fell, all the eternal Tao soldiers that had evolved from the star spirits immediately fell to the ground, like old monks about to reach nirvana. Their bodies were filled with the aura of decay that only Yang Mei had experienced. Dang, dang, dang. The sound of the bell was like the sound of a funeral. For a moment, the entire starry sky darkened. A dusk of the heavens and an apocalyptic aura swept out. Panic, madness, destruction, darkness, boundless despair swept over. 1 stone, 2 stones, 3 stones, countless stars fell from the sky like withered flower petals, fluttering down. All those who came into contact with it, regardless of whether they were living beings or not, would have their vitality, lifespan, karmic luck, and everything else rapidly fade away. The fragrance would disappear in an instant. Despair, destruction, and the state of dusk quickly spread in all directions. In just a moment, it seemed like the entire formation had turned pitch black, making it impossible to see through the darkness. It was as if they had stepped into the eternal night. Everything fell into a deathly silence. This collision was even more powerful than the previous one. Before they even collided, the divine abilities, spirit treasures, and mystic arts they used had already caused the void to collapse. When they collided, the ringing of the chaos bell that suppressed time and space, the drumming of the beast formation breaking drum that boosted morale, and all other sound were suppressed. At this moment, no one could hear anything. It was as if they had gone deaf, or as if the world was silent. However, many people began to bleed from their orifices. They could only see that, with the point of collision as the center, in an instant, the entire formation map world was broken on the spot. The extremely refined and infinite destructive power erupted. It seemed to have reached the 3rd level of the immortal tribulation that Yang Mei was currently undergoing. The destructive power was so strong that it made everyone's expression change. In the formation map, whether it was the enemy or those who did not help either side, they were all shocked at this moment. This was because the aftermath did not distinguish between friend and foe, and it swept everyone in. This time, the attack was too powerful, and even Fang Qingshan himself was a little overwhelmed. He needed to go all out to deal with it. However, for the sake of the promise he had previously made to the people from the light chaotic world, Fang Qingshan first used his divine ability to transfer them to a safe place. Then, he joined forces with the eternal Tao soldiers to attack. Big Dipper. Yes, Fang Qingshan used the divine ability that Yang Mei had used in the past. He had also used it before, which was to borrow strength to fight strength. However, with the help of the formation, the power of this divine ability was much greater. This was to protect the spell formation, to prevent the shock waves from hitting the barrier, and to attack the enemies. Once again, Fang Qingshan activated the spell formation. Under the combined efforts of everyone, he executed the heaven and earth great shift, completely reversing the shock waves that were hitting the barrier of the spell formation. Then, he rushed towards a group of people from the lifeless demon palace. Truly, when it rains, it pours. Even a ship that is late will be hit by the first wind. Damn it! At the sight of this, the people from the lifeless demon palace, who were already exhausted from dealing with the aftershocks, started to panic. The shadow of death was approaching them at lightning speed. They had no time to think, and they couldn't even muster up any resentment or other emotions. At this moment, they immediately used their strongest defensive abilities or used their attacks to counter the attacks, because it was too late to even dodge. Not to mention that the attack range was too wide. More importantly, it seemed to have locked onto their auras, and there was no way to dodge. Rumble. The void was shattered, and the sharpness was infinite. It was endless. Screams could be heard one after another, and it was really heart-wrenching and frightening. At this moment, the hundreds and thousands of primordial chaos experts who had attacked Fong Qingshan in the formation had suffered heavy losses. Basically, those who were not good at defense, did not have defensive cardinal treasures, divine abilities, mystic techniques, or had consumed too much energy, or were unlucky had all suffered at this moment. After this wave, their overall strength had been reduced by more than 30%. Although the scene was somewhat unexpected, it seemed to be reasonable. In the formation, their strength was naturally suppressed. The previous wave of trump cards had used up a lot of energy, except for those one-time talisman treasures. The new force had just been used, and the old force had not been regenerated. At this moment, the aftermath had attacked, and they were already exhausted. However, Fong Qingshan had actually managed to deflect the shockwave that was heading towards him. The most important thing was that the power of the aftermath had not been reduced at all. Instead, it had become even stronger. In this case, wouldn't the people who had been attacked be in trouble? Of course, they had suffered heavy losses, and Fong Qingshan and the others did not have it easy either. Otherwise, did they really think that the hundreds and thousands of primordial chaos experts were made of paper? Although they had the power of the formation to share the burden, many eternal Tao soldiers in the early stage of the Sage-to-Be were either seriously injured or dead. Even Fong Qingshan, Jiang Mingyue, and the others were no exception. The formation had originally been perfectly integrated with heaven and earth, but now was somewhat unstable. Chapter 13:21. Phew, Fong Qingshan, Jiang Mingyue, and the others could not help but heave a sigh of relief as if a heavy burden had been lifted from their shoulders. Good Lord, the array was almost broken. Fong Qingshan did not expect these people's trump cards to be so powerful. If he had not manifested the one Qi Sanqing at the last moment and set up a 3 Greats array in the 9 Palaces 8 Trigrams array, enhanced by the power of the Timeless Arc, and performed the Shifting Stars, the wave of power just now would have broken the array. However, the sky was clear after the rain. Since he had not broken the array and had been seriously injured by it, it was time for him to expand his victory. Unfortunately, Fong Qingshan had forgotten one thing. His enemies were not limited to those in the array. At this moment, those who had been leisurely and unhurried, thinking that everything was under their control and that they had not been drawn into the diagram, were all dumbfounded. Initially, they had thought that with so many people attacking together, even if Fong Qingshan had the array diagram and the array was not bad, he would not be able to deal with it. It was only a matter of time before the array was broken. However, they did not know that Fong Qingshan had set up an array within an array. To be honest, the 10,000 Immortal Array was worthy of being a great array in Desolation. Otherwise, the Sect Master Tong Tian would not have been able to break the Immortal Slaying Sword Array and set up the 10,000 Immortal Array. In addition, there were Eternal Tao soldiers. As a result, the final result was completely beyond everyone's imagination. Hundreds and thousands of primordial chaos experts attacked together. Not only did they not hurt him, but Fong Qingshan also used their strength to destroy 30% of their combat power. What a Dao sect! It's indeed worthy of being ranked in the top 100 on the Supreme Forces list. Yes, a starving camel is still bigger than a horse. Even though the Dao sect has declined, any disciple still has such means. It's really terrifying. What do we do now? What else can we do? The arrow is already on the bow and has to be released. At this point, do we still have a way out? In that case, let's break the array. All right, let's not delay. Things might change if we delay. I have a bad feeling about this. These Immortal Realm experts didn't want to wait any longer and were ready to break the heavenly cycle-stellar formation to avoid unnecessary trouble. Yang Mei had also reached the final juncture of his undying tribulation. Although the increase in power of the third immortal tribulation wasn't as fast as the previous two immortal tribulations. However, the power of the second lightning tribulation was still 3 times stronger than the previous one. Although the ratio wasn't big, one had to know that the base was there. No matter how small the ratio was, the power was enough to shock people. Yang Mei had used all his means, including his divine powers, mystic arts, body, laws, and spirit treasures. He had used almost everything he could to barely cope with the first 8 thunder tribulations. Even so, at this moment, he was already at the end of his rope. His magic power was almost exhausted, his body and primordial spirit were broken, and his injuries were not much better than those during the great tribulation of creation. His healing elixirs were also long gone. Even his second-level natal treasure, the green willow staff, was heavily damaged. Many of his divine powers were broken, and he couldn't use them for a while. However, Yang Mei didn't feel depressed. Instead, his eyes were as bright as the sun and the moon because there was only one last lightning tribulation left. After this lightning tribulation, the sky would be clear after the rain. At that time, not only would his cultivation, combat power, and lifespan increase greatly, but his future would also be bright. In the future, when Feng Qingshan's recommendation took effect, he might not even have to wait that long as he survived this tribulation and successfully returned to the Daoul sect, he might even be able to join the inner sect with Feng Qingshan. If his cultivation broke through to the immortal realm and joined a big force like the Daoul sect, his future would be bright. In the future, he might even be able to break through to the God Emperor realm or even higher realms. Of course, the premise was that he could survive the last lightning tribulation. In this regard, Yang Mei naturally wanted to cheer himself up. If he didn't succeed, he would die trying. After saying so much, it was actually only a millionth of a second. The 9th lightning tribulation had already struck down. Compared to the 8th lightning tribulation, its power was only 3 times stronger. However, Yang Mei had used up almost all of his strength for the 8th lightning tribulation. At this moment, he could only throw caution to the wind and take out his last trump card. Hollow Willow. Yang Mei revealed his true form. However, compared to the beginning, the current Hollow Willow looked like withered branches and withered leaves. Even the main trunk was covered with hideous cracks. Everything is empty. The natal space Great Tao combined with the natal mystique. Everything is empty not only referred to the space Great Tao, but also to the emptiness. Using the void to attack the real, using the insufficient to defeat the more. Big black hole explosion. The amplification secret technique used the power of the instant explosion to sublimate and greatly increase one's combat power. It was like burning one's blood essence. The aftereffects were great, but at this moment, survival was more important, so he couldn't care less about the aftereffects. If he couldn't survive the current tribulation, it didn't matter if there were any aftereffects or not. Once he survived, there would be a chance to make up for it in the future. Finally, there were 2 supreme treasures. One was the green willow staff, the other was the chaos bead. The green willow staff was Yang Mei's Tao-confirming numinous treasure. The chaos bead was somewhat unexpected. In Pan Gu's chaotic world, apart from the supreme treasures of the Great Tao, there were already 4 known supreme treasures of the chaos bead. They were the 36-grade creation green lotus, the heaven-splitting divine axe, the chaos bead, and the good fortune jade plate. 3 of them belonged to the son of the Great Tao, Pan Gu. The only one, the chaos bead, was missing. He didn't expect it to end up in Yang Mei's hands. However, after thinking about it carefully, he could actually understand. Although Yang Mei was the strongest existence among the 3,000 chaos demon gods, there were many people who weren't at a disadvantage compared to him, such as the time demon god, the karma demon god, the fate demon god, the samsara demon god, and so on. But why did all these people die, and even Pan Gu died in the end, but Yang Mei survived unscathed? Now he understood. He actually had the chaos bead, a level 3 supreme treasure of the Chaos Bead. In comparison, the Creation Green Lotus was for defense, the Heaven-Splitting Divine Axe was for offense, and the Good Fortune Jade Plate was for enlightenment. The Chaos Bead, on the other hand, contained primordial chaos, which was the most suitable for Yang Mei. A man's wealth was his own ruin. Yang Mei already knew this. He wasn't Pangu. He didn't have such great luck or powerful combat power. Therefore, after obtaining the Chaos Bead, he kept it a secret. Although he wasn't afraid of trouble, it was naturally best if there was no trouble. Moreover, a supreme treasure of the chaos was not a spiritual treasure of the chaos. It wasn't that easy to refine it. Before completely refining it, Yang Mei didn't dare to reveal it all. Therefore, apart from Pangu, almost no one knew that the Chaos Bead was in Yang Mei's hands. The reason why Pangu knew about it was because of the great tribulation of creation. Facing the attack of the Heaven-Splitting Axe, he had no choice but to summon the primal Chaos Bead in the face of death. That was how he had managed to survive. Chapter 1322. Although Yang Mei had successfully survived the great tribulation of creation, the price he had paid was not small at all. Not to mention the injuries he had suffered. He had been holed up in the desolation and had even been chased out of the desolation by Hong Jun in the end. The Chaos Bead had also suffered heavy damage. Although the Chaos Bead was also a chaos treasure, its offensive power was not as good as the Heaven-Splitting Axe, and its defensive power was not as good as the Creation Green Lotus. Most importantly, Yang Mei was not as good as Pangu. As mentioned before, although a spiritual treasure was good, it depended on the person using it. The Chaos Bead did not have the offensive and defensive power of the Heaven-Splitting Axe and the Creation Green Lotus. Moreover, Yang Mei was far inferior to Pangu. The result was self-evident. The Chaos Bead was directly destroyed by the Heaven-Splitting Axe and was no longer a level 3 chaos treasure. Regarding this, there was nothing to be surprised about. This could also be considered a scheme of the great Tao of chaos. Thinking about the other 3 supreme treasures, the Heaven-Splitting Axe had turned into the Heaven-Splitting 3 treasures, the Creation Green Lotus had turned into the 5-direction Lotus Platform, the 5-direction Flags, the God-Slaying Spear, and so on. The best one was the Good Fortune Jade Disc, but had also dropped in grade and became a chaos spiritual treasure, its fragments scattered everywhere. Its fragments were scattered everywhere. In the end, it was collected by Hong Jun and became a Hong Jun Tiandao treasure. As such, the Chaos Bead was no exception. Other than the largest part that was still in Yang Mei's hands, the other fragments had evolved into the 36 Sea Calming Divine Pearls, Connate 5 Elements Pearls, Sun Moon Pearls, and other spiritual treasures. While recuperating in the desolation, Yang Mei was also searching for the Chaos Bead's fragments like Hong Jun. At the same time, he used the Great Tao of Space to nurture the Chaos Bead. He hoped to repair this treasure as soon as possible. However, one could imagine how difficult it was. Just look at Hong Jun and you will know. The Fortune Jade Plate had suffered less damage than the Chaos Bead, and with Hong Jun Tiandao's help, it would transform into a Hong Jun Tiandao treasure in the future. Now, it was only a chaos treasure. Therefore, the Chaos Bead was just like the Green Willow Scepter, a rank 2 chaos spiritual artifact. However, even though it was a second-grade treasure, it was still a treasure of its former grade. Furthermore, it was compatible with Yang Mei's Great Tao of Space. Even the Green Willow Staff, a Tao-confirming spiritual treasure, could not compare to it. At this moment, Yang Mei could be said to have no reservations. If he still couldn't get through the last lightning tribulation, he could only resign himself to fate. What a great Tao will sect. Sure enough, there are many talented people. The power of Yang Mei's last tribulation lightning clashed with him, causing a huge commotion, instantly attracting the attention of all the undying experts. Seeing this scene, everyone's expression changed, because, judging from the current lightning tribulation and Yang Mei's technique, if they were to put themselves in Yang Mei's shoes and think about it from another's perspective, they would probably be unable to withstand it. Didn't they see that it was just the aftermath, and they had to retreat again and again. This meant that once Yang Mei broke through to the immortal realm, he would be far behind them. People compare themselves to people, goods compare themselves to goods. At this moment, everyone's hearts were the first to suffer a critical hit. Whether it was out of envy, jealousy, or hatred, or because she wanted to steal Yang Mei's good fortune, or for other reasons, everyone decided that they had to take advantage of his weakness and kill him while he was down. Once Yang Mei's tribulation was over, he would first suppress it. Otherwise, once he passed his period of weakness, there would be unexpected changes. Naturally, Yang Mei didn't know anything about this. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care. Right now, he was completely focused on the lightning tribulation. If he couldn't even overcome the lightning tribulation, what else could he do? What was the use of everyone's schemes? If he survived the thunder calamity, he would naturally have the means to deal with this. After all, Fang Qingshan had already given him the order of guidance for the timeless Arkansas. Putting all this aside, for the sake of overcoming the heavenly tribulation, he had already done everything he could, and he no longer had any regrets. Man proposes, God disposes. Now, he just had to quietly wait for the result. However, the green willow staff and the primal chaos bead burst out with an unprecedented brilliance. Strands of the great Tao of space surrounded them, tearing the sky and carrying an unparalleled power that could crush everything. They directly pierced through the sky and dashed towards the last thunder calamity. Boom! The two collided, instantly creating an earth-shaking sound. Waves of horrifying ripples spread out like a tsunami, carrying an unprecedented high decibel. The earth-shattering sound was as sharp as a blade, rolling and vibrating in all directions. In just a blink of an eye, the sea changed into mulberry fields. Thousands of miles around instantly turned into a wasteland. Light flickered, and no one could see what was happening. Even the immortal realm experts who had retreated a long time ago couldn't help but use all kinds of methods to defend themselves when they were swept by the shockwaves. Because even though they were so far away, they were just affected by the shockwaves. However, when those strands of lightning fell on their bodies, even if they weren't careful, they wouldn't be able to escape, even if they weren't heavily injured. Not only them, but Fang Qingshan wasn't any better. He wasn't afraid of a godlike opponent, but he was afraid of a pig-like teammate. Before the enemy could break the formation, he had already been trapped by his own people. Although Yang Mei didn't mean it. However, they had only just finished dealing with the enemies within the array diagram. Just as they were about to expand their gains, they did not want to be implicated by their own people. The two waves of attacks collided, causing space to tremble. The great cosmic stellar array, which had just stabilized after much difficulty, was forced out. Of course, this was also because of the internal and external troubles. Not to mention the external troubles, the internal troubles were naturally the collisions in the formation. The immortal realm experts who were about to break the Zodiac star formation paused, but they wanted to see whether Yang Mei had succeeded or failed in the process. Is he dead? Everyone looked at the dark clouds in the distance that were like a tidal wave, coming and going fast, and knew that the lightning tribulation had ended. And there were only two possibilities for the lightning tribulation to end. One was that Yang Mei had succeeded, and the other was that he had been killed by the lightning tribulation. However, because the collision had caused too much of a commotion and the laws were chaotic, even the immortal realm experts couldn't see clearly what was going on in the center of the ruins. Fortunately, they couldn't sense Yang Mei's aura, so they couldn't help but feel a little hopeful. They couldn't bear to see others doing well, especially their enemies doing well. This was probably human nature. If Yang Mei had succeeded in passing the lightning tribulation, not to mention his future potential, it was not something that they, who had passed the low-level and mid-level lightning tribulations, could compare with. Even his current battle strength would be very troublesome. As long as Yang Mei had passed the weak period, even if he had just broken through, his battle strength would not be any weaker than them, who had broken through and cultivated for around 10,000 years. He might even be stronger. How could they be willing to accept this? Not to mention that they were still enemies, Just this mentality of hating the rich was enough to make them want Yang Mei to die. Chapter 1323. The others didn't sense Yang Mei's presence and thought he was dead. Even Jiang Mingyue was no exception. Although the Zhodian star formation had taken care of the primordial enemies, and the timeless arc's advancement could intimidate undying experts, however, Yang Mei was in the same boat as them after all. Moreover, seeing that he was undergoing a high-level thunder tribulation, he would be a core member of the Tao will sect in the future. If he died just like that, it would be fine if they were upset, but wouldn't it be a loss for the sect? On the other hand, Fang Qingshan was not worried about this at all. Firstly, he trusted Yang Mei and felt that Yang Mei would not have such a short life. Secondly, Yang Mei had just broken through to the 12th-stage primordial chaos realm, yet he could survive the attack of Pangu. He did not believe that Yang Mei could not survive the immortal tribulation now that he was so well prepared. Most importantly, he did not have any warning in his heart. After all, they were allies, fellow townsmen, comrades in arms, and they might even be from the same sect in the future. If Yang Mei really died, he would definitely sense it. No news now was actually the best news. Sure enough, as Fang Qingshan expected, as the aftermath of the ruins gradually dissipated, the chaotic laws gradually calmed down, and the void was perfected under the restoration of the Great Path. Everything was settled. The place where the thunder tribulation had disappeared was the first to change. However, the originally gloomy and thunderous situation had undergone an earth-shattering change in an instant. The sun was rosy in the morning, and the clouds were thick and heavy. The rosy clouds were like smoke, riding the moon without sleep. There were golden palaces, jade pools, and immortal mansions. Strands of auspicious light and auspicious qi gathered from all directions, condensing into copper lamps. When the golden wind blew, tinkling sounds could be heard. For a moment, celestial sounds lingered in the air, lingering in the air. There were also divine dragons, colorful phoenixes, black turtles, red-crowned cranes, jade lions, white elephants, cicadere, and other celestial birds and beasts. Immediately after, a milky white brilliance descended like a cloud from the sky, directly landing in the center of the ruins. In an instant, the people who originally harbored evil intentions widened their eyes, and their bodies trembled uncontrollably. Because the milky white radiance was none other than the purest quintessence energy of the Grand Tao. This was also the reward from the Great Tao after transcending the lightning tribulation. The lightning tribulation was both a tribulation and a predestined fate. This was not just because the lightning contained the power of creation and destruction, which Yang Mei used to temper his nomological body. It was also because of this final reward. If he couldn't overcome the tribulation, he would die. Crossing it was fate, a great harvest. Moreover, since the origin of the Great Path had descended, didn't that mean that Yang Mei didn't die? After all, the source energy of the Great Tao would only appear after overcoming the heavenly tribulation. For a moment, everyone could not help but curse in their hearts. They did not expect that Yang Mei would actually pass such a powerful tribulation lightning. It should be known that back in the day, their thunder tribulations were only 1/10 of the current one, and they had narrowly escaped death. A wave of envy, jealousy, and hatred rose in their hearts. At the same time, his greed rose again. This time, he was charging at the final descending Great Tao source energy. From the clouds that covered the sky, one could imagine how powerful the power of creation was. This was a gift from the source energy of the Great Tao. When he thought back to the source energy of the Great Tao that he had received back then, he felt that there was simply no harm if there was no comparison. Although the thunder tribulations were not 1/10 of the intensity, the creation reward was not even 1/100th of the source energy of the Great Tao source energy. Truly, the more he spoke, the more tears he would shed. Actually, they did not think that although Yang Mei's thunder tribulations were only 1/10 stronger than theirs, the power of creation he received was more than 100 times stronger. But for this, how much did Yang Mei pay? Not to mention, just like cultivation, the higher one went, the harder it was to improve. The thunder tribulations were naturally the same. High-level immortal tribulations were naturally not comparable to low-level and mid-level immortal tribulations. Moreover, the healing and recovery elixirs alone were enough to make an immortal realm expert go broke. As the saying goes, the more you pay, the more you gain. Therefore, it was only natural that there was such a power of creation. Wealth could move people's hearts, let alone this power of creation. Wasn't it tempting to commit a crime when it was placed in front of everyone? If ordinary people were like this, there was no need to mention these people who originally wanted to take advantage of the situation. How could they not want to take this powerful origin source energy of the great Tao for themselves? If they could, they were 100% sure that after devouring this power of creation, their cultivation would definitely break through continuously. It would definitely not be a problem for them to advance from early-stage immortal realm to mid-stage immortal realm. Some mid-stage immortal realm experts could even advance to late-stage immortal realm. In the end, the key to this power of the great Tao source energy was not the quantity, but the quality. It was a great help for breaking through bottlenecks. Moreover, with the help of this power of the great Tao source energy, not only could they break through without shaking their foundation, but it would also make their foundation more solid and strengthen their potential. It was not impossible for them to break through to a higher realm in the future. Why could one have the potential to advance to God Emperor after passing the high-level immortal tribulation? Wasn't the key to this creation? Unfortunately, they could only think about it. They could only watch helplessly, not daring to take the slightest step forward. It was different from robbing Jiang Mingwei and the others. Even if there was danger from the Dao Will sect, even if the Dao Will sect could crush them as easily as crushing an ant. However, that was also a matter for the future. Distant water could not quench the present thirst. Moreover, if they hid for a while, they might be able to pass. However, if they dared to target the power of the great Tao source energy, they would really have eaten the heart of a bear and the leopard's gall. There was absolutely no chance of survival. Even if they were at the peak of a mortal realm, God Emperor, or even God Emperor, so what? If they had thoughts that they should not have, the final outcome would naturally be seeking their own deaths. The appearance of the power of the great Tao source was to give a reward to those who had passed the heavenly tribulation. It was a reward that belonged to those who had passed the heavenly tribulation. If everyone could steal the creation, then who would dare to pass the heavenly tribulation? After all, passing the heavenly tribulation would only result in death. Just like in the process of passing the heavenly tribulation, if outsiders got involved, they would anger the great Tao. If someone wanted to take the creation reward for themselves, they would also anger the great Tao. This was the same principle as when the timeless arc broke through. If someone wanted to steal the eternal blessing, they would definitely be blasted into smithereens. It was mine, so I could give it to whoever I wanted. If I gave it to you, it was yours. If I didn't give it to you, then you would be killed if you dared to plot against me. Although the great Tao's wrath was not comparable to the wrath of the everlasting lotus, it was still not that easy to bear. Even God Emperors were not willing to face the great Tao's wrath for no reason. There was once a God Emperor who was also a rather ancient God Emperor. He was somewhat similar to the Dao Will sect's patriarch. They both went to explore the dangerous void. However, the Dao Will sect's patriarch wanted to fulfill a promise, while the Dao Will sect's patriarch wanted to find an opportunity to break through the God Emperor and reach a higher level. However, the outcome was the same. Chapter 1324. The entire universe, the boundless void. It could be said that God Emperors stood at the top of the pyramid. They were like saints in desolation. Other than the God Emperors themselves, there were very few things that could harm them. Unfortunately, the dangerous lands of the void were one of them. If one hears the way in the morning, one can die without regrets in the evening. Back then, the Sword Emperor of the Storm chased after the natural disasters in the void in order to prove his Tao. This god emperor also went in and out of the dangerous lands of the void in order to break through to god emperor and pursue a higher Tao. Actually, this was something that could not be helped. In the entire universe, the infinite void, everyone knew that the god emperor was the highest level. As for the method to break through to the god emperor realm, other than a few top-notch, ancient supreme forces and god emperors, there were no records of it anywhere else. What if there was no path? There were no paths in the world, but as more people walked, they became paths. As such, one could only rely on oneself and chance encounters. To an emperor god, there were very few opportunities that were still useful. The most obvious were the various danger zones in the void. As the saying went, calamity was fate. The dangerous lands of the void could harm god emperors. Similarly, it could be an opportunity for them. Therefore, this god emperor went to all sorts of dangerous lands. As the saying went, if one often walks by the river, one's shoes will get wet. In the end, he encountered many opportunities. However, they only strengthened his foundation, strengthened his magic power, and increased his combat power. However, they did not help him break through to god emperor at all. On the contrary, because of the dangerous lands, he was injured all over. Moreover, these injuries were not easy to treat. Over time, he became even more injured. In the end, he did not have many days left to live. At this point, he had to break through to god emperor, even if he did not want to. This was because if he did not break through, he would die like the patriarch of Dao sect. If he did not break through, he would not survive. In order to treat his injuries, to break through, and to survive. In the end, this god emperor decided to go all out and directly set his target on the Great Way. He actually wanted to steal the source of the great path of the infinite void. When the time came, it didn't matter if he merged with the great path or something else. It wouldn't be much worse than it was now. The result was self-evident. The great Tao was enraged that time, and the entire universe was under the wrath of the great Tao. Under the backlash, a dignified celestial emperor died in less than an hour. Not only that, many people with poor mental states, deep negative karma, and dissatisfied with the great Tao were implicated. If he didn't go berserk, he would die. Let's not talk about this. At the center of the ruins, there was nothing else that had been struck by the lightning. There was only a small withered tree left, or even just a tree stump, a dim pearl, and a scorched black walking stick that was filled with hideous cracks. These were naturally Yang Mei's main body, the chaos bead, and the green willow staff. The primal chaos bead was still fine. After all, it was a level 3 treasure. A starving camel was still bigger than a horse, so it did not suffer too much damage. The green willow staff was miserable. It was struck until there was only a little bit of source power left. Of course, the one who suffered the most was Yang Mei himself. At this moment, Yang Mei could almost be said to be a living dead person. His vitality was so weak that even a gust of wind could blow him to death, let alone enemies. Fortunately, he was still alive. As long as he was alive, there would be miracles. The most important thing was that he had passed the immortal tribulation. The power of creation of the great Tao descended. But as long as there was a trace of vitality, he could be reborn from the ashes. As expected, there was only 1% of the main trunk left. Originally, his true spirit had already fallen, and his primordial spirit had already collapsed, leaving only a trace of spiritual consciousness. But as the power of the source of the great Tao descended, wisps of source power were like a pair of skillful hands, threading a needle into Yang Mei's body. Not long after, a 9-colored cocoon completely wrapped Yang Mei. Yang Mei was like a cocoon, waiting to break out of the cocoon and be reborn as a butterfly. His injuries, which were on the verge of death, were rapidly recovering at a speed visible to the naked eye. Not only did he recover, but as the power of the source of the great Tao continued to merge into his body, it was constantly being absorbed, constantly improving and strengthening. The first to recover was naturally the true spirit. When the true spirit awakened, the primordial spirit naturally awakened as well. It gathered the shattered primordial spirit. Without destruction, there could be no construction. Then it was the physical body, the main body, and the hollow willow tree. Originally, there was only 1% of the main trunk left, but at this moment, it was as if it had been injected with growth hormones. Like bamboo shoots after the rain, it grew taller and taller. In less than an hour, it was completely restored to its original size, and it did not stop. It was still growing. As ferocious beasts with spiritual roots, the size of their main body could represent their cultivation. The bigger the size, the more powerful it was. Then, it was the nomological sky pillar, which was completely replaced by the immortal sky pillar. Waves of space Tao rhymes completely opened up to them, as if at this moment there was no cover at all. It was completely exposed in front of them. This was the door that belonged to the immortal realm, completely opened up to Yang Mei. In the blink of an eye, actually, from the moment Yang Mei passed the last tribulation lightning to the time the great Tao rewarded him with the power of fortune, everything happened in the blink of an eye. In that instant, within the ruins, a willow tree that was even more majestic than before stood up. Its entire body emitted an uncontrollable aura. That was the unique aura of an undying realm expert, and it did not seem like someone who had just broken through and was still in a weak state. Instead, it seemed like an experienced, undying realm expert, as expected of someone who passed a high-level, undying tribulation. It's really a case of comparing people to each other and comparing goods to each other. Still not making a move? What are we waiting for? Are we waiting for him to recover and deal with us? That's right. Let's all attack together, break the array, and take down Yang Mei. After the surrounding, undying realm experts sighed, they could no longer sit still. A portion of them flashed and surrounded Yang Mei, preventing him from escaping. After all, he was now an undying realm expert. Even though he had just passed the tribulation and was still in a weak state, he was still on the same level as them. Even though the tiger was small, it was still the king of beasts. Moreover, Yang Mei did not look weak on the surface. Even a lion would use its full strength to capture a rabbit. Therefore, a dozen undying realm experts, among which there were a few undying realm intermediate stage experts, surrounded him from all directions and then made their move to capture him. On the other side, a dozen undying realm experts also made their move, slapping towards the Zodion star array from afar. Attacking separately, neither side delayed. Chapter 1325. Rumble. With a loud sound, the Zodion star formation was destroyed. Even the Zodion star formation was shattered into pieces. Blessings never come in pairs, and misfortunes never come alone. The great heavenly cycle stellar formation, which had been knocked out of the void by his teammates and could not merge back into the void in time, immediately shattered. Of course, even if it was at its peak, the Zodion star formation would not be able to withstand the combined attack of so many immortal realm experts, especially when they were outside. Of course, it would not work inside either. Although the Zodion star formation set up by Fang Qingshan could not be mentioned in the same breath as the formation set up by the Demon Clan, it was still limited by their own limitations. The strongest person who set up the formation was only Uncle Wong, but he was just an ordinary primordial chaos realm level 12. The difference between them and immortal realm experts was too big. If there were only one or two immortal realm experts trapped in the formation, they might be able to fight back if they risked their lives. But today, more than 10 immortal realm experts attacked together, completely wanting to send them to the 18 levels of hell, never to rise again. It was fine if they did not attack, but once they attacked, they would be sealed in their coffins. If the eternal Tao soldiers had 3,000 primordial chaos realm experts, even if they were only at the early stage, if Fang Qingshan's cultivation broke through to the immortal realm, if Timeless Arc became a supreme, if the situation would not be so bad. But there were so many ifs. They vomited blood. Fang Qingshan, Uncle Wong, Jiang Mingyue, and the eternal Tao soldiers who had set up the formation all coughed up blood like fountains. They kept coughing up mouthfuls of blood, along with pieces of their internal organs and bones. When the Zodion star formation was broken, the people who set up the formation were naturally the first to bear the brunt of it. They were shaken and attacked. In an instant, there were heavy casualties. Originally, in the previous collision, most of the Eternal Tao soldiers at the early stage of Sage to Be were heavily injured. Now all of them died directly. Not only the early stage of Sage to Be, but also the middle stage, late stage, peak, and even the quasi-sages were no exception. The casualty rate was as high as 30%, and almost 100% of them were heavily injured. Good heavens! Fang Qingshan had painstakingly cultivated him for many years. Now, not to say that he was back to square one, but his heart was bleeding. Apart from the Eternal Tao soldiers, Fang Qingshan, his clone, Uncle Wang, Jiang Mingyue, and the others were no exception. Even the Zhodian star array diagram was damaged. Fortunately, Fang Qingshan and Jiang Mingyue each had their own trump cards, and the Zhodian star array had already been integrated into the Timeless Arkansas. As long as the Timeless Ark was not broken, even if it was damaged, it could quickly recover. Only Uncle Wang's old arms and legs were injured. It would take some time for him to recover. Even with the defense of a Zhodian star formation, the strength was shared by everyone, and these Immortal Realm experts did not use their full strength. Otherwise, the Eternal Tao soldiers would not only lose 30%, but 90%. Even Uncle Wang could not escape death. The gap between the Immortal Realm and the non-Immortal Realm was huge. In a trance, Fang Qingshan seemed to return to the feeling of facing a sage in the Pan-Gu chaotic world, before he broke through to the Origin Realm. If he did not become a sage, he would still be an ant. If he did not become an Immortal Realm expert, he would still be an ant. If he did not become a God Emperor, he would still be an ant. Origin Realm and Immortal Realm. Immortal Realm and God Emperor. God Emperor and God Emperor. Each realm was like an insurmountable moat compared to the previous one. And the further one went, the bigger the gap. Only by becoming a God Emperor could one be considered to stand at the top of the pyramid like a sage in desolation. If it were any other time, facing such a situation, Jiang Mingyue would have already taken out her trump card and started to fight back. Although it might not be used much, it was still a last-ditch struggle. The people of the Dao sect could only die standing, not kneel to live. Even if they died, they would drag one or two down with them. Fortunately, a bad life was better than a good death. Since there was a chance to live, no one was willing to give it up. Now it all depended on Fang Qingshan. Jiang Mingyue and Uncle Wang looked over at the same time. Thunder Emperor, begin to evolve and become a supreme. With their lives at stake, Fang Qingshan did not hesitate at all and gave the order without any hesitation. Facing an Immortal Realm expert, unless they all broke through to the Immortal Realm or gave him 3,000 primordial Chaos Dao soldiers, it would be useless even if they had some trump cards. After all, their trump cards could only deal with Immortal Realm experts at most, and they could only attack one person. Not to mention whether they would give you a chance to take them out. Even if they did, how many could you deal with? Most importantly, if you had a trump card, did the other party not have one? Therefore, at this time, they could only delay as much as possible until reinforcements arrived. What could be more reliable than the advancement of the Timeless Ark? During the Tao Tribulation, there might be people who would risk their lives and drag you down with them. If the Timeless Ark advanced, Fang Qingshan would see who dared to touch the tiger's butt. In addition, once the Timeless Ark advanced to the supreme level, it would be like Yang Mei breaking through to the Immortal Realm, and its combat power would not be the same. Even if it still could not fight back and turn the tide, relying on the defense, attack, and flexibility of the Timeless Ark, it could still delay and buy more time. In fact, without waiting for reinforcements, they could break out of the encirclement by themselves. Everything is ready, and we only need one thing. After receiving Fang Qingshan's order, the Thunder Emperor, who had been rubbing his palms, was full of anticipation and excitement. Go! This time, it was not Fang Qingshan who spoke, but Mosquito Dowrin. In order for the Timeless Ark to advance, it had to fulfill two conditions. The first was the strength of the body, and the second was the Eternal Divine Furnace Unit. The strength of the body, because of the fine void iron at the auction, had already completed a transformation. The only problem now was to fill in the last eternal divine furnace unit. As long as this was done, the timeless arc would completely advance to the supreme Great Perfection realm. In order to do this, it had to give up Mosquito Doran's 24 grades Red Lotus of Fire. Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Doran were already mentally prepared for this. Although they were a little reluctant, Fong Qingshan and Mosquito Doran knew that they had to be willing. Therefore, at this critical moment, there was no hesitation at all. Whoosh! In a split second, the timeless arc swallowed the 24 grades Red Lotus of Fire and the Sciention 5 Elements flags at the same time. Yes, it wasn't just the 24 grades Red Lotus of Fire, but also the Sciention 5 Elements flags. This item was once Fong Qingshan's Dao, proving spiritual treasure. As his cultivation increased, his natal Dao transformed into reincarnation, and he gradually abandoned it. However, at the end of the day, it was of the same origin as the 24 grades Red Lotus of Fire. He originally wanted to use it to advance the Red Lotus of Fire. He wouldn't be able to use it in the future because the Red Lotus of Fire was about to merge with the Timeless Arkansas. The Timeless Arc also needed to advance to the Supreme Being realm, so it could be used together. Who knows, it might even become the first treasure to evolve into a second-grade Chaos spiritual treasure. Chapter 1326. The 24-realm Red Lotus of Fire was originally evolved by Fong Qingshan using the 12-realm Red Lotus of Fire as its base. It had devoured the White Lotus of Purification, Green Lotus of Creation, Golden Lotus of Virtue, and Black Lotus of Destruction. However, because the Golden Lotus of Virtue and Black Lotus of Destruction hadn't reached the 12th realm, it still had 70% of the Green Lotus of Creation's origin. With the Khanate 5 flags, breaking through the 24 realm wouldn't be a problem for it to reach the 25 realm and become a level 2 treasure. Especially since it had become an honorable together with the Timeless Arc, with the Eternal Blessing, it would be much easier for it to break through than the Khanate treasures. At the same time, Yang Mei looked at the immortal realm powerhouses surrounding him and laughed. They really think highly of themselves. Sadly, he and Fong Qingshan had expected this. Unhurriedly, the corner of his lips curled up into an eerie smile. Not good. Seeing this, everyone's heart skipped a beat. Although everyone didn't know where the bad thoughts in their hearts came from, they subconsciously believed in their own straightforwardness. Therefore, almost immediately, everyone attacked at the same time to suppress Yang Mei. Sadly, it was too late. The corner of Yang Mei's lips curled up. He took out a token and squeezed it. At once, a force similar to a teleportation array exploded. With a flash of brilliance, Yang Mei disappeared without a trace. In the next moment, Yang Mei, Fong Qingshan, and the others appeared on the deck of the Timeless Arkansas Rumble. After an earth-shattering rumble, the Timeless Ark revealed itself. It was 100,000 meters long. It instantly attracted everyone's attention. They didn't even care about Yang Mei's sudden disappearance. This is the Timeless Ark. I didn't think the Dao sect disciple would be the owner of the Timeless Arkansas. First, it was a level 2 array diagram. Now, it's the Timeless Arkansas. These disciples from the big sects are really not something that loose cultivators can compare to. The Timeless Ark is about to ascend to the Supreme tier. That's not right. How could the Supreme Timeless Ark be so powerful? Everyone present was experienced and knowledgeable. It would have been fine if the Timeless Ark hadn't been revealed, but as soon as it was unfurled, everyone knew what it was. He was a little surprised that Fong Qingshan was the master of eternal heaven. After all, eternal heavenly vessels were extremely rare even in the myriad of worlds. Even those who were born divine beings wouldn't be able to obtain them. Moreover, once the master of the Timeless Ark matured, none of them would be easy to deal with. Even if they hadn't matured yet, all the major factions would treat them with respect. However, what surprised them even more was the fact that Timeless Ark had yet to become a paragon, yet he was already giving them a lot of pressure. Generally, the Timeless Ark at the supreme level was only at the primordial chaos level. However, Feng Qingshan's timeless arc had a deep foundation. When it was at the Ling Yun level, it had 9 eternal divine furnace units. When it was at the unparalleled level, it was still relatively normal. When it was at the supreme level, it had 5 eternal divine furnace units. The timeless arc had yet to ascend, but it already had a top-notch first-class supreme treasure like the Bell of Chaos, which had a deeper foundation than a second-class supreme treasure. The Life and Death Gourd was a second-class supreme treasure that had yet to be completely repaired. The others were at least innate spiritual treasures. Therefore, Feng Qingshan could rely on the supreme level of the timeless arc to contend with peak primordial chaos existences. It had just begun to ascend, but it already made these immortal realm experts feel pressured. Once the timeless arc ascended to the supreme level, there would be even more earth-shattering changes. Compared to ordinary people advancing to Primordial Chaos Saint and Primordial Chaos Saint advancing to Immortal Realm, the change was even greater. At that time, the Timeless Arc wouldn't have a problem suppressing an ordinary early-stage Immortal Realm expert. He could even resist a middle-stage Immortal Realm expert. Although he couldn't defeat a late-stage Immortal Realm expert, he could rely on his defense and agility to escape easily. Of course, this was referring to one-on-one battles or when there were fewer people. Otherwise, they wouldn't even need to wait for reinforcements. As long as Timeless Arc leveled up, they would be able to deal with the upcoming crisis. Damn, what do we do now? What else can we do? Let's wait. Sigh. If I had known earlier, I would have taken action earlier and not given them the chance to advance. It's only a matter of time before there are changes, and now there are unexpected changes. What else can we do? Don't think that you're amazing just because you've advanced to the utmost exalted level. That's right. We have so many Immortal Realm experts and late Immortal Realm experts. I don't believe that we can't take him down. Once Timeless Arc advances, I'll strike immediately. I want him to feel despair when he's at his peak. Seeing Timeless Arc's advancement, these people felt unlucky. All of them regretted not breaking through the formation at lightning speed and capturing Feng Qingshan directly, not giving them a chance to catch their breath. Sadly, money couldn't buy that. If they had known earlier, regret would have been useless. As for stopping them from advancing, they still wanted to live a little longer. It should be known that Timeless Arc's advancement was different from Culpa. During Culpa, one person could be sacrificed and they could drag others down with them. However, when Timeless Arc was advancing, if someone dared to disturb him, then they would really be asking for death. Not to mention Immortal Realm experts, God Kings, or even God Emperors. If they dared to do so, they would have to die. Therefore, they could only wait for Timeless Arc to complete his advancement, then make their move. Feng Qingshan's group had predicted this, so they wanted to use Timeless Arc's advancement to stall for time. Therefore, nobody cared about the Immortal Realm experts outside, because they knew that even if they had 10,000 guts, they wouldn't dare to make a move. However, they didn't let their guard down either. Instead, they made their own preparations. After all, Timeless Arc was only stalling for time. Once it succeeds, without the everlasting Lotus's protection, before reinforcements arrive, they would still have to face dozens of Immortal Realm experts. As for God Emperors, they didn't see them, and they didn't know if there were more hidden. That wasn't within their scope of consideration. What they needed to do now was to try their best to do what they were supposed to do. Feng Qingshan was naturally preparing for Timeless Arc's advancement, waiting for the everlasting blessing to arrive. Then he would raise his cultivation level and see if he could create the Heaven's Path proving scripture chapter. Yang Mei, on the other hand, found a quiet place to adjust his breathing. While getting used to his new cultivation level, undying power, and techniques, he was also speeding up his recovery. At the same time, he was refining the Green Willow Staff and the Primal Chaos Bead. After all, if Timeless Arc really did advance, and Jiang Overlord hadn't arrived, they still had a tough battle to fight. Jiang Mingyuan naturally used the Jiang family's secret technique, heart-to-heart, to contact Jiang Overlord, telling him to speed up. Otherwise, her sister would never see him again. Chapter 13:27. The Thunder Emperor controlled the eternal divine furnace, and with a flash of light, a lifelike purple-black thunder dragon suddenly rose into the air, opened its mouth, and swallowed the 24-grade red lotus of fire and the congenital 5 elements flag, and then turned them into an eternal divine furnace unit. In the blink of an eye, the entire heavenly ship was filled with countless mysterious markings. Then, these markings transformed into endless blood-red flames that quickly spread throughout the heavenly ship. It caused the heavenly ship to be filled with a strange, enchanting yet sacred aura, causing people to feel a sense of awe in their hearts. They didn't dare to slack off. After the red lotus of fire was integrated into the timeless arc, it tempered the timeless arc with hellfire. Then, the advancement of the timeless arc began. In an instant, an infinite amount of wish power broke out from the body of the timeless Arkansas. The body of the timeless arc was integrated with the 3rd-grade golden lotus of merit by Fong Qingshan, so it has the ability to devour wish power. As long as there is enough wish power, even without relying on other heavenly materials and earthly treasures, the timeless arc can continue to improve. This is actually somewhat similar to the sacrificial refining of Tao tools in the immortal world. Emergent sect, astral sect, supreme sect, these big sects all raise countless creatures. On the one hand, it is to cast a wide net so that they can select disciples. On the other hand, like the 10,000 returning immortal island, they can directly sacrifice when needed. Finally, in fact, it is the most normal thing to earn wish power and sacrificial refining Tao tools. However, wish power is not so easy to earn, because a wish power requires at least one devout believer to pray devoutly for a period of time. And believers are also divided into levels. Not everyone is a devout believer. Some are just last minute, some are just dubious, and some believe, but not deeply. And these accounted for more than half. Therefore, the collection of wish power is actually not so easy. Although Fong Qingshan sits on countless worlds, there are trillions of believers. But those gods and Buddhas all over the sky, which one is not like this? But I have not seen them use the power of incense to improve to a high level. In addition to the rarity of wish power, the quality is also a problem. The higher the grade, the more wish power required, and there are even requirements for the quality. For example, at the supreme level, one devout believer's wish power is enough. At the supreme level, if you want to achieve the same effect, you need a fanatic's wish power. Not to mention these, the entire timeless arc is wrapped in wish power like a big golden cocoon. It released a strong Buddhist aura. Countless creatures appeared in the surroundings, all of them praying devoutly. It was as if life was moving and flourishing. This is the outside. Inside, the arc, the eternal furnace, the arc, the tower, the arc, and the arc. Wisps of chi constantly floated out, eternal arc, tower, arc, and arc, and arc, and arc, and arc, tower, and arc, and arc. Wisps of origin energy constantly floated out, shuttling back and forth between the various units, washing and refining the timeless Arkansas. In an instant, the entire sky ship was like a baby crying piteously for food after a long drought. It was as if it had finally received rain after a long drought. It frantically absorbed the life energy that was being nurtured within the sky ship. The sky ship was rapidly growing, expanding and expanding at a speed visible to the naked eye. Every inch of the arc is wriggling. It was originally close to 100,000 zhang long, but now it is like a balloon that is being inflated, expanding rapidly. 100,000 zhang, 130,000 zhang, 150,000 zhang, 180,000 zhang, 200,000 zhang. The entire timeless arc is really changing in a breath, as if it has jumped from the 50s to the 60s to the 20th century. The changes are shocking. The hull, deck, sails, towers, and other parts of the arc are all expanding rapidly. Compared to Yang, Mei passing the immortal tribulation, the blessing of good fortune, and breaking through to the immortal realm, the changes are even greater and faster. This feeling is like a snake transforming into a dragon, a crow evolving into a three-legged golden crow, a monkey becoming Sun Wukong, and a pig becoming Zhu Beiji. This is a qualitative transcendence. Wisps of terrifying energy are constantly circulating. At this moment, all the accumulated power is turning into nutrients for the growth of the timeless Arkansas. Of course, it is a bit of wishful thinking to rely on the previous accumulation to advance. Therefore, Fang Qingshan still needs to continuously pour all kinds of resources into the timeless arc, so that it can also speed up the speed of the timeless arc's transformation. Compared to advancing from unparalleled to supreme, this time advancing to supreme requires more resources. Fortunately, after the timeless arc advanced to supreme, Fang Qingshan consciously accelerated the development of the all-heaven chessboard. With the 4.8 trillion blood gods that Mosquito Dauren created as a foundation, and with the infinite power of providence, he opened a passage to the infinite worlds and collected as many resources as the grains of sand in the Ganges River. Although some of the worlds are only minor kiliocosms, since they are worlds, they can't be underestimated. After all, each place nurtures its own talents, and each has its own specialties. Just the power of the world's origin is the top of the world's treasures. Later, as the poison god Marquis and the others swept through the primal chaos, Fang Qingshan actually also collected in secret. On the other hand, the timeless arc's ruins are not only connected to the entire Pan-Gu primal chaos, but also to the infinite void and the infinite worlds. Although it's only a small part of the time, and a small part of the people's cultivation base isn't that high, but it's already very rare. Therefore, the resources he's accumulated are enough for the timeless arc to advance to supreme. Despite that, Fang Qingshan's heart was still dripping blood as he watched the mountains of resources being poured into the eternal heavenly ship like garbage, only to be digested in the blink of an eye. He had wasted his old life, bit by bit, like ants moving houses. He had accumulated these resources from countless worlds, but now they were all gone. However, after thinking about it, the timeless arc's advancement to supreme has greatly increased his ability to protect himself. In the future, when he enters the Dowell sect, his treatment will be even better. Fang Qingshan's heart brightened. The Thunder Emperor and the timeless arc don't care about the changes in Fang Qingshan's mood. At this moment, they're like Yang Mei in the Tribulation Transcendence, only focused on advancing. Streams of origin power splashed out from the core space like water, spreading to every building unit on the timeless Arkansas. Then, these building units began to transform bit by bit. On the deck of the timeless arc, all the soul-shaking bells, soul-chasing arrows, deadly crossbows, magic turrets, and arrow towers. In the sail unit, there's the world of blood, the world of witchcraft, the world of mixed element spiritual liquid. In the mast unit, the masts rise from the ground, forming a battle array. The tower unit, floor by floor, is like a heavenly palace. In the ruins unit, there are various special unit buildings, and so on. All of them are transforming, and all of them are leaping in quality. Not just quality, but also quantity and the flexibility of attack. Chapter 1328. There was no need to talk about the quality. It was nothing more than an increase in grade, from unrated to level 1, and level 1 to level 2. As for the quantity, it was a matter of how many. For example, there were originally only dozens of ballistas, but this time, the number had increased by more than 10 times. As for the flexibility, it was easy to talk about. It was just the variety of methods. Take the arrow towers, for example. In the past, the arrow towers relied on pure arrow attacks, relying on speed and penetrative power. Now, the arrow towers had attribute attacks and even area of effect attacks. For example, death arrows and dusk arrows were attribute attacks, while explosive rain arrows and scattering flowers were area of effect attacks. Of course, whether it was the increase in quality or quantity or the emergence of mutations, They were not created out of thin air. For example, the attribute attacks were definitely due to the fusion of the corresponding natural treasures. These were all accumulated by the accumulation of resources. Pile after pile, one after another, the timeless ark did not know how long it had been accumulating and how many resources it had collected. At this moment, it was being consumed at a speed that was almost visible to the naked eye. The resources in the various treasure unit worlds disappeared quickly, causing Fong Qingshan, Mosquito Dowrin, and the World Tree clone to feel heartache. However, it was worth it. A bird in the hand was worth 1,000 birds in the bush. No matter how many resources there were, if they could not be converted into actual combat power, they were all useless. Keeping them in one's hands would not produce offspring, and if the old did not go, the new would not come. Only by using them to improve combat power and cultivation could they have more opportunities to earn more resources. Although the timeless ark had not completed the final transformation, its potential had increased and its combat power had also soared. Not to mention other things, just the basic attack units, arrow towers, and magic towers on the deck were enough to make primordials below the immortal realm suffer. Moreover, because of the large number and wide attack range, even without the array diagram, without the Dao soldiers, there was no need to fear group battles. However, it was different from the array diagram attack. The array diagram attack surrounded and attacked. Without the array diagram, one could only chase and attack. As the master of the timeless ark, Fong Qingshan had fused with the timeless ark, so he naturally knew the changes of the timeless ark the best. This feeling was as if he was making a breakthrough. Every trace, every inch, and every cell change was clearly presented in his mind, as if he was experiencing it himself. Even if he had experienced it a few times, feeling it again, there was still an indescribable feeling. Although it wasn't his own cultivation, it was still better than observing others' breakthroughs. In particular, the higher one's cultivation and the higher the level of advancement, the more addictive this feeling would be. Because the higher one's cultivation was, the more one would be able to comprehend, and the higher one's level of cultivation was, the deeper and more extensive one would be able to display it. So long as one was able to comprehend a little, it would naturally be even more beneficial. In particular, as the timeless arc leveled up, the eternal Taoist rhyme became even more intense. Not to mention Fong Qingshan, even the God Emperor and the God Emperor would be jealous. Didn't you see the Undying Realm experts outside? They wanted to lift the timeless arc up with their bodies or open the golden cocoon of will, hoping to comprehend a thing or two, just like Yang Mei in the past. Unfortunately, it was just wishful thinking. After the timeless arc leveled up, other than its main body, the eternal divine furnace unit, the eternal lightning pool, and the lightning gathering pagoda changed the most. The eternal lightning pool had started out as a pool, then as a lake, then as a sea. Now, it had transformed into a world of its own. And it was no ordinary minor chiliocosm, either. Its storage capacity had increased dramatically, and the eternal heavenly ship's endurance had also increased dramatically. The lightning gathering pagoda was the same. It was somewhat similar to the heaven chessboard. In the past, it could only pierce through the void within the same chaotic world to absorb energy. Now it could also cross chaotic worlds to absorb energy. The deeper it was rooted, the more energy it could absorb, and the faster. As for the eternal divine furnace unit, the 9 Bends Yellow River Array, the Jodion Star Array, the Death Scythe, the Passing Water Lamp, the Permitha Bridge, the Shocking Thunder Flag, the Eternal Barracks, the Treasurefall Coin, the Great Void God Armor, the Chaos Horn, the Life and Death Gourd, the Wishing Pond, the Bell of Chaos, the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, the Red Lotus of Fire, and the Formation Breaking Drum of 10,000 beasts. A total of 17 eternal units were completely enveloped by the vast power of evolution. When these eternal divine furnace unit were integrated into it, they were at least connate spiritual treasures, and their grades weren't low either. As the timeless arc advanced from Ling Yun to unparalleled to supreme, and now unparalleled to supreme, Their qualities had also undergone earth-shattering changes. Connate spiritual treasures had transformed into connate cardinal treasures, such as the Death Scythe, the Permetha Bridge, and the Passing Water Lamp. In fact, they should have advanced a long time ago, but it was a little difficult for them to transform into connate cardinal treasures. In the past, because their grades were higher than the Timeless Arcs, the Timeless Arcs advancement did not help them that much. Therefore, they had only been strengthening their foundations. This time, however, it was time for a quantitative change to trigger a qualitative change. Connate cardinal treasures had also gained more restrictions, such as the Shocking Thunder Flag, the Chaos Horn, the Cauldron of Heaven and Earth, and the Treasurefall Coin. Yes, the Treasurefall Coin had become a connate cardinal treasure before the other connate spiritual treasures. The reason for this was naturally the ethereal coins. As the ethereal coins circulated, the Treasurefall Coin, as the mother coin, had received great benefits. The most obvious benefit was the upgrade of its grade. Meanwhile, the most elite connate cardinal treasures had begun to evolve into chaotic spiritual treasures, such as the Bell of Chaos, the Life and Death Gourd of Fire, and the 24 grade, one Red Lotus of Fire. As the eternal divine power from the eternal lightning pool continued to flow into the eternal units, it strengthened its source, strengthened its body, and strengthened its foundation. A series of brand new restrictions began to appear naturally. This forced the upgrade of the eternal unit's grade. Just a little bit more. At some point, Fang Qingshan let out a sigh of regret. It turned out that in just a few breaths, the other eternal units had advanced one after another. For example, the Death Scythe and the Shocking Thunder Flag had advanced to connate cardinal treasures, and they weren't just low-grade ones. However, the Chaos Bell and Red Lotus of Fire hadn't advanced to second-grade connate cardinal treasures as they wished. The Gourd of Life and Death and the Wishing Pond had mostly recovered. However, they hadn't fully recovered either. The Gourd of Life and Death and the Wishing Pond were still fine. Although they were both chaos spiritual treasures, they weren't ordinary chaos spiritual treasures when they were at their peak. They were at least high-grade chaos spiritual treasures, so it was reasonable that they hadn't fully recovered. As for the Chaos Bell and the Red Lotus of Fire, they had encountered a bottleneck. There seemed to be an invisible shackle in front of them if they wanted to continue growing. Even the majestic evolution force couldn't easily allow these eternal units to advance a step further and complete the final transformation. This was the same as the Timeless Arkansas. The Timeless Arc was still a step away from a complete transformation. Chapter 1329. After all, primordial treasures and chaotic treasures were on two completely different levels, just like immortal treasures and origin treasures. The difference was too great. Therefore, if he wanted to advance, he would need to rely on even more powerful external support. Fang Qingshan knew that he could only rely on eternal blessings. Thinking to there, Fang Qingshan took in a deep breath and bowed respectfully towards the empty air. He slowly spoke, emphasizing each word. Eternal Mother, today, your child's nirvana-ship has reached the supreme peak. There is no more room for improvement. It can only break through and ascend to the supreme level. My foundation is enough, but I'm still one step away. I hope that you will bless me and help me. I will be eternally grateful. May the great path prosper forever. Every word, neither too fast nor too slow, was like a Taoist song or a Sanskrit chant. It carried a mysterious rhythm. It was sent to some mysterious place. One could eat more, but one could not speak nonsense. This was the same for both mortals and cultivators. This was because, for mortals, this was an era where the gods were watching over them. If they spoke nonsense and offended the gods, it would be fine if they met those who were kind and didn't care, and they would let it go with a smile. But if they met those who were evil and calculative, they would casually trip you up and make you wish you were dead. As for why immortals weren't afraid of karma, who told you to speak first? As soon as you open your mouth, you accepted karma. Didn't King Zhou get punished by Nuwa because of this? Didn't Emperor Taizong get haunted by ghosts because he didn't keep his promises? As for cultivators, it was even better. Ordinary people might let them go because they didn't understand the heavens, but cultivators were different. If they didn't understand the heavens, they would be in trouble. Didn't you see how the disciples of the clan of enlightenment kept saying that they didn't understand the heavens? Although they were immortals themselves, and some were even more advanced than immortals, such as saints, origin immortals, and even immortals, they still had Hongjun Tiandao above them, the Great Path. Unless you reached the level of a God Emperor, you could forget about transcending. But even reaching the level of a God Emperor didn't mean complete transcendence. It was only relative. Otherwise, there wouldn't have been God Emperors who died. Why were there golden words and jade words? It was because their words communicated with the Great Path. Therefore, cultivators were not that free and unfettered, especially when it came to oaths, promises, and prayers. They absolutely could not be spoken carelessly, because once they were spoken, the Great Path of heaven and earth would bear witness to it. If it was completed, then so be it. There would be no burden, and there might even be some benefits. If it was not completed, then one could only wait for misfortune. Under the entanglement of karma, one's cultivation would not be able to break through. Even if one managed to break through, it would attract inner demons and so on. Didn't you see that the Dao Sect's ancestor had no choice but to make a move for the sake of that promise, causing him to vanish in a thin air in the end? Even Fong Qingshan. Fortunately, he was not praying randomly, and he had already experienced it a few times, so he was quite familiar with it. His words and all, he and all, he all, and all he all, and as he. In just a few breaths' time, there was already a response. Beyond the void, an indescribably supreme being had descended upon the world. In an instant, all the giants in the sky sensed it. Is this the arrival of the everlasting lotus? What a pity. When will I be able to reach the level of the everlasting lotus? I don't want to reach the level of the everlasting lotus. It's good enough if I can comprehend some eternal Tao. Sigh. I really envy the masters of the timeless Arkansas, so what if I envy them? Aren't they the same as us? Forget it. Let's not talk about it. Look at the arrival of the everlasting lotus. It seems that the timeless arc has advanced again. By the looks of it, this heavenly arc seems to be extraordinary. Apart from the master of the timeless arc, these giants were at least God emperors. With a thought, they understood what was going on. Although they felt that it was extraordinary, it was still only at the supreme level. It only made them sigh for a while and then put it to the back of their minds. After all, at their level, if it wasn't for the everlasting lotus, it would be impossible for them to have any reaction. Naturally, Fong Qingshan knew nothing about the reactions of the others. Even if he knew, he wouldn't care at all because that level was not something he could reach at the moment. What he knew was the reaction of the everlasting lotus. Host, Mother of the everlasting lotus knows that the divine grace is about to descend again. Mother says that you have done well to make the timeless arc advance from the supreme level to the supreme level in such a short time. Not only has its foundation not decreased, but it has also increased. Mother wants to reward you. The Thunder Emperor couldn't help but feel excited. The everlasting lotus said that it wanted to reward Fong Qingshan as the spirit of the timeless arc. How could he not be rewarded? Not to mention him, Fong Qingshan felt the same way. At the same time, the little bit of heartache from the loss of the red lotus of fire and the various treasures of heaven and earth instantly disappeared. Give up, you can only gain. This saying was true. The everlasting lotus said that it wanted to reward him. Even if it was just a little bit of benefit, it would be enough to make him rich. One had to know that apart from the owner of the eternal heavenly vessel, no one else could hope to obtain the grace bestowed by the eternal green lotus. Furthermore, they could only obtain it every time they advanced. Every time it happened, it was extremely precious. Even the master of the timeless arc could only obtain it a few times in his lifetime, and the amount of benefits he obtained depended on how much he invested. The timeless arc's foundation was ordinary, and the blessing it bestowed was also ordinary. The everlasting lotus was not stingy with its rewards, just like Fang Qingshan's nirvana. For the timeless arc to completely complete its advancement and transformation, it must obtain the approval and blessing of the everlasting lotus. It was like a review, like an imperial edict. Only then could it be considered a true transformation. Only then would the benefits be greater. The more powerful the timeless arc was, the more it would attract the attention of the everlasting lotus when it was promoted. Wasn't it the same when the timeless arc advanced from unparalleled to supreme last time? It was precisely because the everlasting lotus was satisfied that the eternal divine furnace unit gained 2 more out of thin air. It was the same this time. As soon as it advanced, the green lotus descended and directly praised it. What was this? This was the foundation. This was good fortune. Good, good, good. Fang Qingshan was satisfied with 3 goods. Last time, although the everlasting lotus was satisfied, it did not say it. This time, the everlasting lotus directly said that it wanted to reward him. No matter how bad it was, it should be the same as the last time. Chapter 1330. Because of Fang Qingshan's initial 9 divine furnace units and the 5 unparalleled divine furnace units, the Permitha was already considered one of the best among the eternal heavenly ships. If it was rewarded by the eternal green lotus, even if it couldn't be said to be the best, it wouldn't be too bad. After all, the deeper one's foundation, the greater the gap would be in the future. It was just like cultivation. If one's foundation was solid, it might not be obvious at the beginning. Because of the foundation, it might even seem a little ordinary. But once it started to rise, it would be like a trapped dragon rising to the sky, unstoppable. Not only would the speed of improvement surpass you, but it would also get faster and more stable. The timeless arc was the same. In particular, the everlasting lotus's reward was not as simple as adding a few eternal divine furnace units. It was an all-round improvement. The deck unit, the tower unit, the sail unit, the ruins unit, the mast unit, the timeless arc's main body. All of the timeless arc's components would be tempered. Not to mention an increase in quality, but in terms of toughness, flexibility, versatility, and so on, there would naturally be many benefits. The most important thing was the eternal blessing. This was like being enlightened with wisdom, a severe warning. It was an opportunity, and a good fortune. It was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. Compared to the great Tao's reward after Yang, Mei passed the immortal tribulation. The creation blessing was even more mysterious. After all, from a certain point of view, the eternal green lotus had transcended the boundless void and the great Tao of the universe. He was probably the only existence that had surpassed the God-Emperor realm in the infinite void in all the realms in the universe. It was also because of its existence that people felt that there was a sky beyond the sky and the Tao was endless. His good fortune was naturally of a higher level than the great Tao's good fortune. Why could Fang Qingshan spend 1% of other people's time, or even less, but walk to a height that others could not reach in their lifetime? Apart from the all-heaven chessboard, which used the resources of the universe to support himself, it was also because of the timeless arc and the eternal blessing. This was an opportunity to get close to countless great Taos. Raising one's cultivation level, raising one's comprehension of the Tao, tempering one's magic power, physical body, primordial spirit, divine abilities, and many other aspects. Fang Qingshan had relied on this to seize the opportunity to advance by leaps and bounds, raise his cultivation, and comprehend the great Tao. Last time, Fang Qingshan had used the eternal blessing to achieve a great leap in his cultivation. This time, the everlasting lotus had directly asked for a reward. No matter what, he had to break through to the peak primordial chaos. Not only did he have to break through to the peak primordial chaos, but it would also be better if he could comprehend the outline of the immortal chapter of the heavenly Tao verification art. As for why it was an outline and not a complete version, it wasn't that Fang Qingshan didn't have such thoughts, but he knew his limits. It was because Fang Qingshan hadn't reached the immortal realm yet, and he didn't even have a bit of the immortal realm cultivation technique. If he wanted to comprehend the complete version, even if he wanted to imitate it, it would just be an illusion. Even if he could do it, he was afraid that it would be full of loopholes and have no practical value. It would be a waste of the eternal blessing, an excellent opportunity. The most important thing was that the current urgent matter was to use the eternal blessing to work hard to improve his cultivation level. Even if he didn't break through to the immortal realm in one step, he had to at least reach the 12th stage primordial chaos. Then it was the immortal substance. It would be best if he could condense it to 100%. If he couldn't achieve 100%, 90% would be good. Immortal. Wasn't it this immortal substance? When the time came, the immortal sky pillar would replace the nomological sky pillar. Then, it would be the sacrificial refinement of the divine ability, the condensation of dermic powers, and the cleansing of the primordial spirit. Finally, it would be the perfection of the immortal chapter. Of course, the premise was that he had enough eternal blessings to support him to complete all this. Just as Fang Qingshan was thinking about thousands of things, as soon as Fang Qingshan finished his prayer, the empty, boundless void suddenly changed. Whoosh! Under the boundless void, above the timeless arc, a green divine light with an eternal charm appeared. It was no weaker than Yang, Mei's immortal tribulation. In fact, it was even better. Whether in terms of quality or quantity, it naturally broke through the void and completely enveloped the entire timeless Arkansas. An incomparably intimate aura quickly spread out. It appeared in Fang Qingshan's mind. It gave him an indescribable feeling. It felt like he had suddenly returned to his mother's embrace. It was focused and gentle. How could he be like a baby? His entire body and mind were completely relaxed. Then, Fang Qingshan's vision blurred. It was as if his soul had left his body. When he woke up again, he found that he seemed to have left the timeless Arkansas. He was in a strange place. It was different from the boundless void, but it was equally vast. In fact, it was even more majestic. Although he felt a strong pressure, as if the slightest movement could kill him. At the same time, he also felt a familiar and intimate aura, which made him feel especially relaxed. Fang Qingshan couldn't sense his physical body. It was the same with his primordial spirit. It wasn't a true spirit, it was just a consciousness. It was similar to butterfly dreaming of Zhuangzhou. Wasn't I on the timeless arc, waiting for the blessing of the green lotus? Fang Qingshan's heart skipped a beat. But if it was anyone else, they would have done the same. After all, to suddenly appear in a strange place, those who didn't know better would think that they had been ambushed. Although Fang Qingshan couldn't figure it out, he didn't panic. After all, he knew that during the blessing, no one would dare to ambush him. Even if someone did, even if it was the God Emperor, they wouldn't be able to do anything. Therefore, he was on high alert. Standing where he was, thousands of thoughts flashed through his mind as he thought about how to deal with the next problem. Just then, something strange happened in the void. Sparse shadows slanted across the clear water, and a faint fragrance floated under the moonlight. A refreshing aroma circled around the tip of his nose. It was so familiar, so comfortable, and so addictive. Then, an infinite amount of purple light circled around, as if there was an infinite amount of the great path. Fang Qingshan was no stranger to this, because he had once possessed it. It was the primordial purple energy. Every single strand of it exuded a mysterious aura like the great path. In the past, Fang Qingshan only saw strands of it. But here, it was condensed into clouds. Then, in the middle of the primordial purple energy, a miraculous green lotus sat in the middle of the purple energy. The purple energy was like it was breathing. The green lotus naturally exuded an eternal aura of the great Tao. Then, the green lotus bloomed and a human silhouette appeared. Though he couldn't see the person's face, he gave off a sense of familiarity. Like a child or a mother, he was kind and loving. Chapter 1331. Divine Mother. Seeing this, Fang Qingshan almost blurted out, The so-called Divine Mother naturally referred to the everlasting lotus. The timeless ark was like a mother to him. Fang Qingshan was no stranger to this place. That was because every time the heavenly vessel leveled up and received the eternal blessing, he could sense it. His great Tao green lotus visualization diagram was created by observing the everlasting lotus and then combining it with the 36-grade creation green lotus in the mark of creation in his mind, the 12-grade lotus throne, the 5-element flags, and so on. However, he didn't know if it was because his cultivation was not high enough, or because this was a special reward from the everlasting lotus, or for some other reason. In any case, in the past, Fang Qingshan could only look at it from afar. It was like looking at flowers in the fog or the moon in the water. There was always a layer of haze between them. And this time, he was finally here, standing in front of the eternal green lotus, and even seeing the figure of the eternal Mother God. Although it was only a silhouette, and he still couldn't see her face clearly, this was already a great honor and an improvement. After all, many masters of the Timeless Ark, and even the masters of the Timeless Ark who had surpassed the Supremes, didn't have the chance to see the Eternal Mother in person. Hearing this, the figure nodded with a faint smile. Although she didn't say anything, the aura she revealed showed that she was very satisfied with Fang Qingshan. Then, she pointed into the distance. Then, Fang Qingshan felt dizzy. When he came to his senses again, he was back in his physical body on the Timeless Arkansas. Those who didn't know would think that Zhuangzhou was dreaming of the butterfly, or that the butterfly was dreaming of Zhuangzhou. Before he could figure out what had just happened, a surge of information that seemed to be bursting out of his brain erupted like a volcano or a river bursting through a dam, gushing out his mind. The amount of information was as vast as the sea, and the content was mysterious. What a blissful worry! Fang Qingshan endured the pain of his head exploding and madly circulated his primordial spirit, constantly digesting the information in his mind. In fact, in the beginning, Fang Qingshan didn't even have the time to digest it and could only passively accept it. His mind was completely blank. Fortunately, his primordial spirit was powerful, comparable to an undying being. Under the eternal blessing, the supporting force made his primordial spirit even more so magnify by several times, several dozen times, even over 100 times. Therefore, after the initial uncomfortable period, Fang Qingshan quickly came back to his senses. He began to digest, summarize, and summarize. Then, as the information was digested, the blank piece of paper became like a landscape painting with splashes of ink. First, there were 5 beams of brilliance flowing about. They were extraordinarily colorful, like a peacock spreading its tail. Fang Qingshan knew that they were the 5 elemental laws of his own great Tao. Although Fang Qingshan had already transformed the 5 elemental nomological laws into the samsaric nomological laws, they had already become his foundation, so they were naturally the first to manifest. Moreover, the law of transmigration and the law of 5 elements could be interchanged. If it went with the flow, it would become creation and reincarnation. If it went against, it would become destruction and chaos. Sure enough, the 5 beams of light countered each other. They entangled, devoured, and evolved. In the end, they turned into 2 giant dragons, one black and one white. They entangled with each other and connected their tails to each other, forming a wheel with 6 holes. They were the 6 paths. If it wasn't Fang Qingshan's great Tao, then what was the samsara nomological laws? Samsara was also known as the 6 paths of reincarnation. Of course, this was just how it was referred to in Desolation. Even within Desolation, there were differences. After all, the 6 paths of reincarnation referred to the path of heaven, the path of human, the path of Azura, the path of hungry ghost, the path of animal, and the path of hell. But now, the path of witchcraft had replaced one of them. What a pity! Fang Qingshan silently sighed. Seeing so many Tao laws, this was the perfect time to learn the immortal scripture. Unfortunately, the timing was not right. This was because Fang Qingshan's cultivation had not reached the immortal realm yet. It was fine if his cultivation had not reached the immortal realm. The most important thing was that his own knowledge was limited to coming to the boundless void, so he did not know much about immortality. At most, he had heard some hearsay, and Yang may had just crossed the immortal tribulation. Although the eternal blessing was mysterious, it was impossible to deduce a superior cultivation method that was completely compatible with him based on these bits and pieces. In fact, the best time for the timeless arc to advance was after Fang Qingshan joined the Dao sect. On one hand, he would have more time to look for treasures suitable for the eternal divine furnace unit, so he would not have to take out the red lotus of fire. Although he did not want to let the goodies flow into his own field, it was still suitable for Mosquito Dorn's life item. It was much more difficult to find such a thing than a suitable eternal unit. Another point was that after joining the Dao sect, Fang Qingshan could use the Dao sect foundation to speed up the absorption of knowledge about the boundless void and the myriad worlds, especially the immortal cultivation methods. He had seen many things and accumulated many things. With these immortal cultivation methods, secret techniques, and supernatural powers, and with the help of the eternal blessing, Fang Qingshan could deduce the immortal scripture's immortal scripture in one fell swoop. Even if he could not deduce it completely, he could at least deduce it roughly. As long as he could deduce 3 or 4 levels, the road after breaking through the immortal realm would be the great way of heaven. Unfortunately, these were all wishful thinking now. However, every peck and every drink had its own destiny. This was not necessarily a bad thing. After all, Fang Qingshan's current cultivation had not even reached the peak of the immortal realm. To put it nicely, he was planning for a rainy day, but to put it bluntly, he was biting off more than he could chew. His top priority now was to break through to the immortal realm. If he wanted to break through to the immortal realm, he first needed to raise his cultivation to the peak of the primordial chaos realm, followed by the immortal tribulation. The immortal tribulation was divided into 2 parts. One was the Deva's 5 decrepit heavens, and the other was the immortal thunder tribulation. The Deva's 5 decrepit heavens required a corresponding mystic technique, which Fang Qingshan was not prepared for. He needed to join the Dao sect before he could comprehend it. As for the 5 virtues, fate-changing lamp in Yang Mei's hands, this mystic technique was indeed good, but it was only good. Even when Yang Mei was undergoing the high-level thunder tribulation, he was in some danger, let alone Fang Qingshan. Fang Qingshan's qualifications were no weaker than Yang Mei's. Coupled with the fact that he was the master of the timeless arc and the heaven-defying chessboard, his thunder tribulation would at least be a top-notch thunder tribulation. The ordinary Deva's 5 decrepit heavens mystic technique would not work at all. As for the immortal thunder tribulation, he needed to improve his essence, chi, spirit, nomological laws, and immortal matter to the limit or even break the limit to continue improving. Therefore, he still had so many things to improve. Even if the eternal blessing was awarded by the everlasting lotus, there was not enough meat to eat. He had to attend to one thing and lose sight of the other. After understanding this, Fang Qingshan secretly heaved a sigh of relief and devoted himself to comprehending the Great Way. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.